talking about, okay, somebody got it. All right. So 2020, the GRC has started, and they are most of the companies we have seen during the COVID, like last 2 years. Many companies have come and asked for us. Okay, people we never expect this company will ask for GRC. They asked us, okay, we are interested. Our management wants to implement the risk. We don't know what is that. They were not aware of that risk because of the COVID, and they now realize risk can come from any form, and it could be pandemic, but it could come in any form, any disaster. Now, today, many Turkey companies are looking at the risk very much because of the financial disaster. Look at the Lebanon; they have big problems. So, these are the things where companies like to see, hey, what happens if I get into a problem? I'll put it in a simple. So 87% of the global executives, they were worried about one risk, which is very common, the top layers. This survey was done by independent authority, by DSG, and they are only talk to the top layers of the company. For them, the reputation risk is more. It's an example. There could be many, but reputation risk. For example, what it comes to my mind is Volkswagen. Everybody knows that story of the diesel engine manipulation. Immediately, Volkswagen shares have become peanuts, and the complete reputation has gone. Sales suffer. CEO change. Many board of directors, they had to resign. Then the whole restructure happened. They are getting back in the work. And similarly, not reputation risk, but the Volvo suffered a lot of losses. And then because of many things, they are not taken the risk factor. Now bouncing back. But in talking to automobile industry, we have implemented GRC to Rolls-Royce. We have implemented GRC to Tata Motors, who owns a Range Rover, Jaguar, both companies in UK. So they were in a deep red 2 years ago because of the controls implemented. They have now mitigated a lot of risk, a lot of losses. Now they are in line, and they are going to go into black. Now, Diligent is more famous for boardroom software. So the board members, they meet and they make the resolution, they make the decision, how that is processed, how that is executed. It becomes very, very difficult for people to monitor and report. And that's what Diligent have been doing very successfully for so many years. The last one, which came as very important, is ESG. We'll talk a little bit on that. And ESG is like, hey, environmental social governance. After the pandemic, this becomes more important. After the climate change or the global warming, whatever you call it. So consumers want to know what's happening. What is this company doing? If I'm taking a medicine, am I killing something? Am I doing something? And they want to know what is the issue. If I'm printing so many papers, what is happening? So how this company is producing? That's a simple way to ask, but much more background into that. We'll talk about it a little bit. Now, what we are doing, our solution. We are the one company, we are not saying we are the only company, but we are the one of the best companies among best, providing end-to-end solution, which again, you can examine and you can check on the net, and you can check on the Gartner report, which I'll also share. So this one, today what we are going to happen, Ilyas is going to give you a walkthrough on some of the platforms, what we have. He's going to talk about audit bond, controls bond, compliance bond, and the risk bond. Now, Tom Ryan is going to talk, and before that, you will see a video, which we give a demo, which is a recording, ITRM bond and third-party bond. We leave the fraud bond at this moment because of the time constraint, but we can talk anytime if you are interested later on. So this is our website. I suggest please always go and have a look at it, and that could be helpful. Any questions? Sorry.
رايحة درس هسه ونمر على المرض مول بدك شيء من كافور بدك شيء.
Dr. Reis, is somebody asking question in Arabic? You are muted.
No, it's not a question. It's okay. Go ahead.
All right. Well, so how this modern governance we are talking about? What is that in the top layer, and then how it is going? We are looking at that from top down approach, and the down approach is the data, and the top approach is decision making. So we are started with the modern governance with the ESG on the top, so that it goes into that risk and compliance and audit. We'll talk about it. And also the whole thing layer on the broad board level collaborations of diligence software. Now, when you talk about the power of platform, first thing all of you might have realized how hard to access the data which is running in your office during the pandemic, work from home or outside. And also, how secure is that? If you let the people access from outside, you need to have static IP or whatever. You want to do it, how you are doing it, whether it is secure. So to overcome, all our solutions are hosted in AWS, that is Amazon services, hosting services, where we have the most toughest, most stringent certification, IL5. There's only 10 companies, 9 companies in the whole world have the certification. In our platform, US federal government data is hosted. So that's rest assured, your data is more secure. However, we do agree the government regulation prevents the data going outside this thing, because they think that if you keep open platform, the people may be hosted and they may be hacked. They can't give that only for exception to AWS, but they do give for some of the forest companies, forest countries. At the moment they hear, okay, AWS, yes, we can do that. AWS also, and this call today, we have, most of them have used Amazon one way or another. You put your credit cards, you trust that site, you trust that. And this is the time you have to trust them for your data also. As a company, you need to come out. If you are working in a corporate, it's easy to say, hey, our data will be more secure than our own on-premises data because it's in the AWS. So we don't have problem with the amount of data. And what amount of data you have is not an issue for us. And then it could be some routine task or manual or time consuming, which is gone again into automation, that we do that. And the reporting we are talking about, the complexity, how we reduce that. So it is a centralized data collection, and we are, our analytics, which we started with the ACL, now become robotics. We are going to inject more and more artificial intelligence on that. And more importantly, you are going to see the result in real-time value. It is not something somebody is going to print a report and give it to you. The management is going to see straight away, and then they can drill down the storyboards to know where the issue is. Let's go on more on that a little bit. So you have multiple data sources. You may have used one ERP, one CRM, maybe some other software, something on the HR. Everything is there in different silos, okay? If you have that silos, how you put the regulation? So you are an internal audit, you are a risk management, you are a compliance director. Where is the regulation comes in? Where do you incorporate the regulation? That's where we bring the controls and policies. Our control controls bond, compliance bond will take care of those controls. Our risk bond will take care of those controls. And then once you have that, you have to monitor. Secondly, the risk or compliance is not something you paint the wall and then leave it. It is evolved. It evolves on sometimes daily basis or could be weekly basis or monthly basis. You need to change. Some of the old GRC software, people, they want to change, they had to go through the customization. We removed that task. We don't want that. We don't want to trap you. That's called entrapment. You buy it and you trap. No, we don't want to do that. You are free to walk out of us. What we are saying is there is no customization. What we are talking is configuration. Our partners here, they have experience. They will understand your use cases. They will contribute. They will configure what is that best suits to you. And you are up and running within a week's time. That's it. There are months gone, years gone for the customization, but still results are not good with some other customization software. So we don't want you to put that into a situation. You invest your subscription. We are taking a risk because your business for us guarantee for only 12 months. After 12 months, your subscription ends. There is up to you whether to renew or not. Your business is gone if we don't satisfy you. If we don't provide the results what you are looking for. So that's why we made it simple for you. Subscription, easy to use, add as you go, and more users. There is no problem. There is no customization. So continuous monitoring is possible. And there is always a gap, how you provide the gap into alerts or reports. This is what we do. This is what make it simple and straightforward for you. And there is no hidden agenda. You trap it and then you are stuck with life like a big marriage. Yeah. So the platform, we start with analytics in the bottom, and then it goes up and the modern governance and the risk and compliance. So we have this platform. It is a purpose-driven platform from the top and implement that. So imagine your directors. You have that who previously they used to see emails or maybe a printed report on what they have taken the resolution. Now they can see, they can visualize, they can question what is happening, why it is delayed, where is the issues. So because they are accountable in the new law, they are accountable what happens in the company. So that's where coming from the top. Now risk, again, you have the whole risk. Suppose if your company is more than few branches, they spread across the country or different time zones. They can always use and communicate. And this is a measurable scores. It is not somebody who's going to write and put the score. This is a measurable score based on the actions you are taken on the risk and the mitigation. That makes it different. That makes it entirely different on the chart and your parameters, how you are going to measure the risk. And then we have, all right. Compliance. Again, this is it's where you want to put all the compliance. We do also, you can, if you want to have your own compliance, you can create that. It's not an issue. So we do provide the Excel sheet where Ilya is going to show you something, how that map, you can do that. But you want to create, your business is unique, you can do that, your own compliance, yes, you can do that. Again, compliance monitoring. What is the point in doing a compliance? And then you ask the questionnaires and all this, how it is done, how it is taken care. Again, it is measurable numbers. compliance the data, but you measure by numbers to ensure that it is working, it is reviewed, and it is done, it is mitigated, right? The final one where the whole magic works is audit, modern audit. What we are talking, why we are talking modern audit, we have brought the robotics. The robotics is not the something SQL script run by some of the audit consulting companies. We are doing a true machine learning and also artificial intelligence, where they pick up the data and it picks up the data from your different sources, push it up from the bottom to top. So where you have, and this example is it's not a good example to show. It's a T&E monitoring, travel and expenses. So this is something where auditors look into that, how these people are spending the money, is it compliant to the company or not, etc., etc. I'm pushing a little bit more. If you have any question, please do ask me. And then finally, on the top, we have the ESG, environment, social governance. Why it is important? Recently, even UAE government has started talking about it. They are talking about how we are going to do that environment and social governance. How we are talking about that, even the small health hazards, so major issues, and they are talking on that. So we have already started this report. We have provided, matter of fact, COVID toolkit about 2 years ago to all the our robotics users to experience how they can look at it and mitigate the risk of the people, their health concern, people who have the COVID, how they had to quarantine, things like that. So this is a separate subject, and this is the most important subject. It comes from the top, and still in this part of the world, people are just realizing now. They are trying to talk into that, more into that. We will come to that. But currently, what today's session is more on the risk compliance controls and your audit. All right. ESG, it is a new to many people. What is that ESG? We are just trying to explain this in one slide. All this, what they are talking about, it is not only the social governance, but it deep down to your employees, your investor regulators. What happens is the continuity also, if something happens to the top, who is going to take care of it? Who is going to implement the policies? And we do that very easy way. The challenges are mentioned here. Data collection is difficult. Regulation, third-party ESG is paying attention. So how we want to mitigate that, we will show it in a different webinar in the future, inshallah. Now, let's go into that why diligence. I need a bit more time, so I have 2 minutes to go. Well, there are millions of users throughout the world. 95% of the customers renew, and we have 25,000 plus customers, 25,000 customers worldwide. We are selling in 130 countries. We are in 79th position in the Fortune 500. And some of the logos I'd like to share, who have given us the permission to share. So this is the top layer companies in the Fortune 500. They are using. Yes, Apple is using our GRC. Right. Now, where are we in the Gartner? Somebody's asking question. If you could mute that, Mustaq. Thank you. Right, thank you. So we are in the GRC, we are in this level. I mean, as I mentioned, we are the leaders level all the way in Gartner. We are one among the top. There are also some people are above us, but given our journey to GRC, it's only 2012 to now, it's 9 years. When you talk about Archer, they are there for last 20 years or something. So as we climb, inshallah, we are climbing. So we will see the dot moves up in the future. Keep watching in the Gartner match, you will see that. ITRM, this is a new entry, and straight away we are very, very on the top. ServiceNow is only the guy who's on the top there above us. They are there for that long term, and they are the one who started this ITRM. So we are now fast climbing because of the ease of use, and some of the things you will see today in a video presentation. We are also climbing in ITVRM, which is IT Vendor Risk Management. And this is also there in the Gartner PR that leads. So you see that most of us in the whole GRC, ITRM, ITVRM, we are in the leaders. Now, why we are, who we are, again, we are talking about diligent. We are obviously diligent bought us for $1 billion plus, means we are much more, many millions of dollars of company. We are not cash strapped. We assure the customer that we are not going to wind down or we are into a financial situation. Some of our colleagues, I mean, some of the competitors, which I call colleagues, they are having some financial issues, which you can find out your own way. But we don't have that issue. We are in a happy mode now. We are also backed by inside partners, and that is a Blackstone group. And that they pour the money, they have trusted, they are the best investors in that group. And they have the premier IT companies and golden companies, which has a Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. Now, this is also something I would like to show, show a little bit what we are trying to do. If you see, are you seeing my screen or no? Seeing that one. So let me show. We are providing to audit committee, for example, audit community or the board of some of the tips we give back. I mean, we not taught in any MBA or any CPA program, but they do touch upon this subject. But we have latest information, we interview, we show them what is the roles we need. And this is also backed by some of the big names. I'm not going to play that, but you can go into that website and play. And also, if you are a young director, upcoming director, it would be recommended if you are using Diligent to, rest of the world, so people will be serving you. In the community, we are building the directors community. So this is one of the things we give back when we have that. And we do have a community, the platform with everybody knows that, and we do have academic platform for the government. Oh, I shared the same thing, and sorry for that. I need to share the PowerPoint presentation. All right. So going back to that, I have only a few slides today. So please go and log into those websites, and you will see a lot more education. You don't even have to buy, you become a customer, but you can see those podcasts, those information, which is very vital to your own knowledge and your own. So this is what I said that we are going to give back. That's it. And that I say thank you, and I took 5 minutes more. Sorry for that. So let who is going to take over, Ilyas or
Yep.
is?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Nazim,
Thank you.
for for the insight on diligent and on the modern governance, the ESG. You have covered up some of the parts of the business needs for the GRC solution. And with this, I will ask Elias to introduce or give more insight into the business need for the GRC, followed by introducing the galvanized HighBond solution. And he will also do the walkthrough of the HighBond solution, which includes the audit risk and compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mushtaq. Thank you, Nazim. So, good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to this webinar again. Thank you for attending. As Nazim and Mushtaq have already mentioned, we are going to see now a short, very short PowerPoint slide regarding the needs for GRC in an organization. Then we are going to see the workflow and some common terminology that we are going to view while we are doing the walkthrough on the system. And then we are going to directly go into HighBond, which is our GRC platform, in order to perform a walkthrough on audit management, compliance management, and enterprise risk management. So, right. So first of all, we are going to discuss the need, the business need for a GRC solution. Now, this can be summarized in 4 easy points. The first one is we are in need as a business organization for the automation of audit, risk, and compliance work, which means that in these evolving times and amongst all the advancements that are happening in the world, we cannot stick to the conventional and may I call it primitive way of doing your audit, risk, and compliance work. The regulations are outstandingly increasing. All the requirements are becoming more strict and stringent due to all the events that are happening globally around the world. And we need to be up with pace with that advancement. So the automation of audit, risk, and compliance work is very essential for an organization. For example, in audit, auditors, they need to manage their audits. They need to schedule audit-related tasks. They need to perform time management. They need to do the reporting. So in all that, if they are only doing it in the manual way, they will fall back in time. They will not be able to keep up with everything that is happening in the audit world, and they will not be efficiently performing their audits as they should. If we go to compliance, you know, I don't need to say, as all of you, I'm sure you know, the increasing number of standards and regulations that are being imposed by regulators are outstanding. Even if they don't introduce new regulations and standards, the updates that are happening and the modifications that are happening on the existing standards is a hassle alone for all companies, whether in different sectors, to keep up with this with these updates. So a software like a GRC platform like HighBond will be able to facilitate the importing and the update of all the regulations that you as a company need to be compliant with, the documentation and workflow, the controls associated with the requirements in these standards and regulations, and all the surveys and attestations that need to go around when you are performing your compliance management. So this is a very important issue that we need to take into consideration, that the changing requirements and standards are essential and are the first step to actually building a healthy compliance environment. As for the risk, risk is a very important factor, and here we are talking about enterprise risk management, strategic risk management. And as you all know, in enterprise risk management, you need to have a defined strategy map, which includes your strategic objectives against the entities that are responsible for the success of these objectives. You have your risk register, and where you are able to populate it with the risks that you think might affect your company. So you will need to manage these risks by doing assessments, by providing a treatment for this risk, and finally reaching assurance for this risk. You will also need to have some sort of visualization to always show your work to your superiors or to the board or to the risk board, actually, in order and where they can see in a form of a heat map where your company currently stands out with relation to these risks. Where are you now in terms of these risks? Are we mitigating? Are we in danger? What risks pose the most threat? Which risks are scored the highest? So we need to put in the most effort and resources in order to mitigate this risk. So all of these play a very important role in managing your whole organization and governing your whole organization from a control perspective, under which audit, risk, and compliance fall. So this is a brief on the first point, why a company is in need for a modern GRC platform. Second point, which is data-driven GRC assessment and decision-making using analytics. Now, this is also very important. And I'd like to mention that Diligent offers the only data-driven GRC currently in the market. So you do not have to go to another vendor or to a third party in order to claim or to purchase an analytics software to generate data and analyze data. Diligent supports our GRC with ACL Robotics, where it is all integrated together. It is all integrated under one single umbrella, which is HighBond. And in HighBond, you are able to use this ACL Robotics. You are able to accumulate scattered data from different systems. So let's say we have different systems in our organization, maybe an HR system, a finance system, a compensation system, a payroll system. So it is all scattered in different systems. And when we want to perform any of our work in audit, risk, or compliance, we are in need of gathering data from these systems. What ACL Robotics can provide is that it can connect to all these different databases. Whatever database that you have, there are in ACL Robotics more than 120 plus built-in connectors, such as Microsoft 365 Dynamics, such as Salesforce, such as Oracle, Excel, PDF, any of these files or databases that you might have, ACL Robotics is able to connect to and import this data to perform analysis and make an informed decision. So we call this informed decision making based on facts, based on data from your systems, where you will be confident that whatever you use while you are performing your audit assessments or testing or any of your activities, you are backed up by facts. And one more important thing is that you will not be performing your audit on a sample of data. You will be performing on the whole population of your data. So you will no longer be resorting to the sampling method, where if you have, let's say, 100,000 records of data, you might take 1,000 only and perform your analysis. But rather in our software, you will be covering the full population and widening your audit, compliance, or risk coverage in your organization. The third point, The third point is a holistic view of audit, risk, and compliance issues. So you will be viewing under one platform, and maybe even in one dashboard as well, in our storyboards application. You will be able to view all the issues and all the happenings in your organization under one platform. And the board, the stakeholders, the executives, the departments such as the audit, risk, and compliance will be able to view these issues under one umbrella and one platform and make informed decision based on these issues for automation, on remediation, and solving these problems. And finally, organization-wide continuous monitoring through real-time dashboards, where you are able to continuously monitor everything that is happening in your organization in real-time basis. So as our robots work and run on a scheduled basis, which of course you will be the ones defining the schedule, you will be able to have an updated view, a real-time view at any point of time whenever you log into a certain storyboard or dashboard, and view what is currently happening in your system. Has a risk been updated? Has an audit issue been remediated? Has a risk, has a compliance requirement been satisfied, and you can consider yourself as compliant with this requirement? Has any data from our systems been updated based on a specific request from any of these three departments? So you will be able to have a real-time view on everything that is happening in your organization from these dashboards. And moreover, you can go ahead and see what is the data that is lying behind these dashboards, behind these graphs, behind these visualizations that are empowering these updates. So with these 4 points, these are the 4 major needs for a business to implement a GRC platform, and moreover, a data-driven GRC platform, and not just any GRC platform. Over here, we are going to see how our software, just for common terminology, we are going to see how HighBond talks to each other, how the applications are linked to each other, and the workflow that is actually behind our software. So as you can see over here, we have our strategy application, in which you are able to record your strategic objectives against your entities, which we call a strategy map. You are able to locate and identify your strategic risks that might pose a threat on your company or on your business. You can manage these risks by performing assessment, by applying a treatment, and by reaching your required assurance level to make sure that you are in a safe zone, you are protecting your company, you are mitigating this risk to the most possible level. And from there, you will provide assurance on your strategic risks. If we go to compliance maps, now in compliance maps, you will be able to, as we have mentioned before, you will be able to record your regulations and standards. So let's say I want to be in compliance with ISO. I want to be in compliance with COVID 5. I want to be in compliance with any other international standard or regulation. So yes, all of these are available in our software, pre-built in our software for you to use as a whole program. And if you have your own, maybe a local regulation or standard, or even your own on an organization level regulation and standard to which you would like to test and make sure that you are compliant with, that can also be achievable. In frameworks, you can consider frameworks to be your single source of truth for all your controls. So you can consider frameworks to be a template of all the controls that you want to apply, either to enterprise risk management, either to compliance, or to audit projects. So based on the different project types that we have in our software, and we are going to see that when we get into HighBond, we are able to create frameworks, and based on these frameworks will contain the controls that we need in order to make sure that we are covering all the areas, whether it is in strategic risk management, compliance management, or audit management. Now, just for you to understand the workflow of how this happens, we have our projects application. In projects, it is where all the testing is done. So let's say I have already recorded my controls in my framework. However, I did not test these controls. What if I have listed a control, but this control is not realistic, or this control is not effective, or a certain risk or issue is hindering the success of this control? So in projects, it is where we are able to test all these controls, whether it is an audit project, to test the controls for an audit project, to test the controls for a compliance project or assessment, or to test the controls for a risk or risk assessment or project as well. So this is where the control, this is where the controls are tested, and whenever the controls are tested, they are mapped back into frameworks, and frameworks provide the assurance that you require in compliance, risk, and audit. Now, we have mentioned that, yes, we are going to test our controls, but how are we going to perform this testing? How are we going to identify whether a control is effective or not effective, whether a control is working properly, or exceptions or issues or observations need to be noted? So we have three methods that we currently use in order to test these controls. And you might want to use these three methods simultaneously all together, or you might want to use them one by one, or just two of them. So it is all up to you. It is not like it is mandatory to use all three methods at the same time for the same control. Each control might require different one of these methods, or the three of them all together, or maybe one or two of them. So the first control is the manual data. As you can see over here, the manual data. And what we mean by manual data, it means that a certain user on the system with his or her credentials, this user will log into HighBond, and of course, based on the access rights provided to this user will input any relevant information, whether it is related to controls, to risks, to issues, to requirements. So this user will input evidence, let's say, on a control to prove whether this is working effectively or this is not working effectively. The second type that we have, the second method actually that we have, is the human data. And what we mean by human data is the automated collection of data from humans. So this is all in the name. We are able to send out questionnaires and surveys that collect data from recipients, and these recipients are actually the stakeholders from whom we need information and data to perform our testing. So these are sent out to whether they are auditees, they are business users from different departments, maybe we are in need of attestations from our superiors. So these questionnaires, surveys, or attestations, they are all sent out automatically based on a schedule that we define in order to collect data from the stakeholders. And this data is recorded in our system in a tabular format by which we can use for analysis, for creating dashboards, for monitoring. So all of this is applicable under one umbrella in our system. The third method, and the most important method actually, is robotics. So when we say robotics, it means that we are going to use the power of analytics, the power of machine learning, the power of artificial intelligence in order to gather data from different systems And as you can see here, whether it is an ERP system, an operational data system, Salesforce, Excel, even in Twitter for reputational analysis. So it can, and in the demo that is specified for ACL Robotics, you will be able to see most of these connectors, how they are listed and built in automatically in ACL Robotics. So whenever we connect to our different systems and create this and gather the data to create insights, to create exceptions, to create red flags, we are also able to automate the assessment of the controls. So by using robotics, we have jumped into the automation of the controls rather than the conventional testing based on certain evidence. So from robotics, from the data that has resulted from our analysis, we are able to create metrics in the form of key performance indicators, key risk indicators, key control indicators. So we are able to use these as a metric to assess whether this control is working effectively or not. So if I have created a certain percentage in the form of a KPI, let's say, I can say that if this KPI is greater than X amount, then this control is effective, while if it is less than an X amount, then this control is not working effectively and issues have been noted. And of course, this decision that I have made is based on my business environment, that my decision on how I want to test these controls, and my insight into my business, basically. After I have tested these controls, if it is working fine, if the control is effective, then that's great. I have no issues. On the other hand, if the control is not performing as it should, then issues need to be created and we need to go into the remediation workflow. What we mean by remediation workflow is that I have my control that has failed. I have created an issue to address the failure of this control, and I need to put in an action plan to remediate this issue and get my control up and running again. This action plan, after I created the reminders and the remediation and the update that is required from the issue owners or observation owners, this will be automated as well. So I will not have to go into the system again to send, or into my email actually, to send out reminders, to send, or maybe lift up my phone and call the people who are the owners of this issue and remind them that we need an answer from you guys on this issue. So the system will send out automated reminders and it will inform us if any due date has been crossed or has been skipped. And finally, after I have done everything, I can perform a reporting using my storyboards, using the auto-generated report that from any project, and I will be able to show my work to the right stakeholders. And at any point of time, we can go into these reporting methods and check where we currently are in our system. So with that, I would like to conclude on this presentation and say that we can go into HighBond right now, and we are able to see how we can actually apply everything that we have just discussed into HighBond. So we have an hour and a half as per the schedule to go over the applications that are in HighBond. We are going to go over 3 main applications, or 3 main, let's say, solutions that are audit, risk, and compliance. Now, the first thing I need to do, obviously, is I will have my username and I will have my password, and I will log into HighBond. Whenever I log into HighBond, this is my home screen, as you can see over here. All these applications, and we are going to talk about most of them actually. These are the applications that I'm going to use whenever I want to perform any of the scenarios or the solutions that we have just mentioned. Before getting into the audit scenario that we are going to have a walkthrough on today, I'd just like to mention very quickly that all these resources will be available for our clients, included in the subscription, free of charge. So you will have the Academy, which is basically an LMS, which includes courses that you can undergo and you can take related to either as a beginner or basic user for analytics, intermediate user, advanced user, for audit solution, for management, for compliance solution, for risk solution. So in the Academy, all these courses are available for you to enhance your skills, to test yourselves, and to become more skilled and handle the system, our GRC platform, in a more professional way, which will increase your efficiency. We have our community, which includes thousands of users around the world that share their experiences, share their maybe the difficulties that, if there are any in the software, provide solutions for each other, help each other out, share their experience. So it is a very nice community, and whenever you are our client, we welcome you to join this community and benefit from the people around the world who similarly use this software. In the toolkits, you will be able to have different toolkits related to different subjects in GRC. You will have your script hub, which is a set of hundreds of ready-made scripts that are just ready-made and predefined, and the whole logic is there. So the script is all ready for you to use. All you have to do is just modify it a little bit in order to match your database names and fields. You also have the help docs, which include very detailed information. So basically, it's help documents, very detailed information on all the functionality and that you can imagine that are applicable in our system. So to the deepest and most detailed functionality that is in our system, you can imagine that it is there in help docs. You can find that whether it is a functionality in audit, risk, compliance, ITRM, ITVRM, and analytics as well, and robots. So everything that you need in terms of documentation, you will be able to find our help docs. Finally, you have our support, this is on a Diligent level, which where Diligent provide 24/5 support. You can either open a ticket or you can use the live chat. Moreover, we as D-Dimension are always ready to support you in anything that you might require as well. So with that being said, we will jump into the first walkthrough that we are going to have, which is related to audit. So before going into audit, I'd just like to mention that in frameworks, as we have mentioned, in frameworks, it is where we are able to create our templates, which we are going to use. So let's say from an audit, if we are talking from an audit perspective, some audits, we need to do some of the audits, let's say on a continuous basis, let's say on a quarterly basis, on a maybe on a monthly basis, or on a semi-annual basis, or maybe on a yearly basis. So I don't want to, every time I want to perform this audit, I don't want to start from scratch and create the planning, create the purpose, the background, the risk control matrix, which means the objectives, risks, and controls, and then I have to start from scratch. From an audit perspective, frameworks allows you to save this template for an audit project and then reuse it again and again whenever you want to perform this audit. So if, let's say, I'm performing this audit for Q1, and Q3 for every year. So in Q1 of, let's say, 2020, I can just import this whole audit project from frameworks, and I will be able to perform my audit. And then I can do the same in Q3. What's the difference between Q1 and Q3 is the testing of my controls. But everything that comes before the testing of the controls, which is identifying the objectives, identifying the risks, identifying the controls themselves, everything is pre-populated in this framework, and you can use again and again. So just a quick view on frameworks. So as you can see over here, these are the objectives for a certain audit project. And this is the risk and control matrix. So as you can see here, the controls are associated to the risks, and the risks are already, the operational risks in this case are already assessed and associated to the controls as well. So every time I want to perform this audit, I will not have to go again and create all this over and over again. I can just directly import it from my framework. That being said, we are going now to go into projects. This is where the real work happens. This is where all the grind, and the effort is put, where we need to perform the testing of our controls and we need to do the field work. So before jumping into a project, I just like to mention that on the right side of the page, you can see the priorities and the planning and the results section, as well as the admin sections. So over here, I can see all the tasks, issues, actions that are assigned to me by different colleagues. And those are the ones that I have assigned to my colleagues, either to ask them to perform any task, or ask them to look over a certain action, or ask them to review anything in the system. For my planning and results, I have a lot of capabilities. One of the most interesting capabilities is scheduler. So I am able to schedule. My audits either on a quarterly basis, weekly, monthly, or fiscal year. So if I go into, let's say, on a monthly basis, I am able to see that some audits are scheduled between which month and which month. If I go into my quarter as well, I can see it in a view as well, where I am able to see what are the audits that I am currently performing on a quarterly basis. So this will allow me to plan my audit throughout the year and schedule these audits as well. And moreover, I can do the same for my people. So for the staff that are going to handle these projects, all my staff in the system who are going to work on a project, I can also assign them to certain projects based on the different times of the year and plan out their tasks, or not their tasks, but assign them to the projects that they are going to work on during the year. I can also look into if I am an admin, I can manage my users. So which users can access which projects, the level of access that they have. I can manage the project types, the entities, and I can go ahead and just start my audit project. Now, there are two ways to start an audit project. I can either start a new blank project from scratch and start everything from scratch. Or I can go into my project template and use one of the pre-built templates that are available to all clients in HighBond if they want to start off and kick off with any of these projects. So as you can see here, you have, let's say, the IT general controls in a SOX context. You have a sales commission audit. You have, let's say, a SOC audit, payroll audit, order to cash, travel and entertainment audit. So all of these are are available for our clients to use whenever whenever they want to have a pre-populated audit. So whenever you choose one of these templates, your risks, your objectives, risks and controls are pre-populated, predefined, pre-assessed. And of course, if you want to modify any of these, you are able to do so. The other way is that you can import from the frameworks that we have created. So to get into these projects, we are going today to see a sales commission audit project. Now, please bear in mind that this project, I have used it from the templates. So whenever I click on my project, the first page that will open is the dashboard. And in the dashboard, I am able to see the work that I have performed on 3 levels of review. So based on the international internal audit globally, 3 levels of approval or 3 levels of sign-offs need to be administered as a best practice. That is not, of course, that is not mandatory. That is a best practice. It is up to you whether you want to use it or not. So we can see what has been signed off on different stages of our audit project. And on this page, we will also see the recent activity. So as you can see over here now, because this is a demo and I'm the only one who has worked on this project, you can only see my name over here. However, when we are working on in a real life audit project in a certain organization, different people, maybe 2 or 3 auditors will be coordinating and working on this project. So you can see here who has done what and when have they done it. For a more detailed monitoring of the activity, I can download the activity log. I can even put it in our ACL Robotics, perform some analysis to check out the performance of these auditors, maybe to check out what are the activities that are being done and see if any unauthorized activity or not in a timely manner. So for different purposes, we are able to download this activity log and perform some analysis. The second tab is the planning. So in every audit, we need to start with the planning, where we need to put the background of this audit. We need to put the purpose of this audit, and we need to put the scope of this audit. So we are able to write them down over here. We are able to put them in a manner where they are organized as a first step. And we are able to attach any planning file that you might deem suitable. So let's say I want to attach a certain planning file that supports the background, the purpose, or the scope. Or I want to, as a planning file, I want to upload the notification letter or email that is being sent to the auditee. So everything that I need to attach, whether it is in Word, PDF, or any other format, I can do that in my planning files. Then we move into fieldwork. And in fieldwork is where the real work happens. I have my objective. So obviously, I can add another objective, or I can import this import objectives from another framework. So just to demo, let's say I want to use a certain framework. So what I have to do is just click on import objective and choose from which framework I want to import. And the framework has to be the same project type, of course. So if I'm performing an internal audit financial project, it has to be with the same type. So I can just, let's say, for example, choose the framework that I want to import from. I can select all or select some of these objectives and just click import. And these objectives will be imported into my project along with all the risks and controls that are related to this objective. Now, in order to start the fieldwork, we need to go into the risk and control matrix. So first of all, I will have obviously my overview of this objective. some details on this objective. I can assign the user that will be working on this objective. If I need to put in place any narrative, so a narrative, as you can see over here, can be added to describe the flow of work in a step-by-step process with commentary to clarify or expand on each step. So if let's say I have a step-by-step process that I want my auditors to follow, I can just attach that, I can create that, I can document it, and this will help my auditors to follow the process of work that I have, that I as a manager or as a chief auditor, I have assigned. Now we get into our risk and control matrix. If I am using a framework, then all of this will be predefined for me. So I will have defined it first in my framework as a start, and then every time I import it into a project, it will already be defined for me. But for this case, I have used the sales commission audit template that is available by Diligent in HighBond. So that's why everything in here is already defined for me. But nevertheless, at any point of time, I can go into any risk and I will be able to modify the assessment that has been made. So I am also able to add any risk manually or import any risk from any active project, any archived project, or any framework as well. And if we click on the control toggle, you are going to see that you will have your controls, which are associated to your risks as well. And the same thing happens over and over again. You can either add your control or import the control. Now, sorry. Okay. So I think someone needs to be muted. So Mushtaq, can you please check on that?
One minute.
I think it's Mr. Rabia Silfani.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So as we were saying, in the risk and control matrix, we are able, these are already, if we are using a template or if we are have imported from HighBond, from the templates that are in HighBond, we are able to perform, we are able to view them as predefined as well. It is very easy to associate any control with the risk or vice versa. So if I just click on associate control, I will have the list of controls that are present in this project, and I can choose whether I want 1 control, 2 controls, 3 controls, or any number of controls, and I can choose the control weight as well. It is not always the case where the control weight is 100%. Sometimes we need to have different controls to reach the 100% assurance for a certain risk. So this is totally up to the business need, the business requirement, and for the purpose of this walkthrough, we are just going to leave it at the simple scenario and leave it at 100%. And as I mentioned, it is the same. If I go into controls, I can associate risks. So these are the same, whether you do it from the control side or from the risk side. When I am satisfied and I am done with my control risk control matrix, I need to sign off. As you can see here, these are my initials and I have signed off. The next step that I will need to do is that I will need to assign this to my next reviewer. So let's say I am an auditor and I need to assign it to the audit manager or the senior auditor. So if I choose any of these people that are users in the system, and this person is supposed to be my next reviewer, I can just choose the name, click on set and notify reviewer, and it will be sent to that person. And then that person in turn, if they require any additional action from my side on this specific page over here, they can create a to-do for me. So let's say because I have signed off, they can no longer edit anything in this page. This is to validate, and this is to protect every single user on the system. So whenever I sign off, it means that no future modifications can be done on this page unless I remove my sign off. So here, if I remove my sign off, then yes, sign off has been removed. I can, anyone can come here, of course, with sufficient access rights and edit. But whenever I sign off, this page is locked, and we need to assign it to the next reviewer if there is any. Supposedly the next reviewer would like me to do anything. All they have to do is just click on the to-dos and say, let's say, please add the risk that we have just discussed in our meeting. Then my next reviewer assigns it to me, and he or she can put a due date for this review, for this task for me to do. So they can choose a certain due date. Let's say we have put this due date in by 20th of this month, and we click on save. What will happen here is that Elias Hanna will receive an email with a link that your manager, for example, or this user on your system has assigned it to do for you, and with a link. Whenever I click on that link, it will take me directly to that page, and I will view what has been requested of me, and I will take care of that. And whenever that is taken care of, I can just go here into my to-do page, and as a reviewer, I can close that issue as done, and it has been. Okay. So this is basically how it goes. Then I have my walkthroughs. So and please note that all of these tabs over here are adjustable, are configurable, as Nazim already mentioned before, that these tasks are not our system. Sorry, our system is not customizable. It is configurable. So we can configure what are the tabs that you want to see over here, and we can create specific project types for you that fit your need as well. So let's jump into the testing of these controls. So we can see, okay, before testing the controls in walkthroughs, we can say whether this has been designed appropriately or not, and finally we can sign off. So this is very easy to do. We can just go into the specific control, and then we are not going to provide any of these supporting documents right now. We are going to see how we'll do that in the testing, but just to see how easy it is, we can just say that yes, it is designed appropriately, the design did not fail, and then we can sign off again. And if we go back to walkthroughs, we can see that this is now addressed as it is designed appropriately. So in testing, this is where we actually perform the testing of the controls, and we are able to check whether a certain control is effective, is operating effectively, or whether some exceptions have been noted, which in turn require us to create certain issues to address these, to address the malfunctioning control. So let's go into this control, which is review to ensure that commissions are not paid on ineligible revenue and are paid on eligible revenue. So if I go into this test, I can see over here that I have added a supporting document, which is the commissions on sales contract. All I had to do was just drag and drop this this supporting file into my project, and then I have used something that is called citation mode. So in citation mode, this is very interesting. So supposedly I have created I have a document that is maybe 100 pages long. And I don't want my next reviewer to go through the whole process of going through the 100 pages of this document just to find maybe one sentence or just one paragraph in this document that relates to the control, or that acts as a supporting document or a supporting file or a supporting evidence to this control. So if I use citation mode and create this link, and as you can see over here, I have mentioned, so I need to remove the sign off whenever I want to do anything. Okay, so as you can see over here in citation mode, I said, please refer to the policy in the contract. Now this contract is big, and there is only maybe one policy that would act as a evidence to this control and not the whole document. So why do I want my detailed reviewer to lose his time and to waste his time actually looking over the whole document just to find the one paragraph that I am suggesting? So if I create this hyperlink, and then if I click on this hyperlink, as you can see, and it will show this file. And if I click on the file, it will directly open the part of the file that I want to highlight for my detailed reviewer to check, rather than going through the whole document and reading the whole document. It will open directly to that part of the document, to that sentence or that document or that clause that I want my detailed reviewer to check, which is relevant to this control. Moreover, I have used a KPI to automate the assessment of this control. So I have my monthly percentage of total invoice amount as a KPI. I have used my ACL Robotics. I have gathered my data from one system or from different systems. I have done my analysis and I have achieved my results. Now, on these results, I have created a certain KPI that will help me automate the assessment of this control. This KPI will act as a benchmark to whether this control is effective or if it is not effective. So if I go here where I want to choose whether this control is operating effectively or not, you can see that I have automated this this assessment. So I have chosen the metric, which is the only one that is related to this control in this case that I want to use. And I can enable my assessment driver to run on a continuous basis. So whenever this report runs, whenever robotics runs this report, the KPI will be updated. And in turn, the system will automatically update the testing results of this control. So over here, I can say that if it is, I have defined as an auditor, as a staff auditor, or as an audit manager who is performing this audit, I have defined that whether if this KPI is less than 70%, then this control is operating effectively. However, if this KPI is greater than or equal to 70, then there are exceptions that have been noted, which means that there is a certain issue and I need to address this certain issue. Now, this is as you can see here, it's operating effectively. Why? Because it fits the threshold that I have defined. So let's suppose that whenever robotics runs, let's say I have defined robotics to run on a weekly basis. When robotics runs the next week and the script runs the next week, this KPI might become 73% or 72%, for example. Then whenever this KPI is updated, let's say to 72%, HighBond will automatically change the result of this control that you can see over here, and it will automatically make it as exceptions noted, and which means, and this will alert the owner of this control that there is something wrong with this control. Please take a look at this control. You might want to create a certain issue. You might want to fix something in your organization. This control is not doing its job as it should. And like that, so the system will update the result of this control. So I have another, and of course, whenever I'm done, I will sign off and assign it to my next reviewer. Another example of a control that has failed. So over here we have two controls that has failed. Let's take a look into user access roles and the commission systems are properly defined. So obviously there is something wrong with these exceptions, and this is based on the percentage of weekend access. So this is a key performance indicator as well that I have created. And I have also attached my user access rules. So my next reviewer can check this citation. Just a second, yeah. So my next reviewer can check the document and the citation that I have created for this document. And they will be directly able to go into this document and check what I have highlighted, as we have just seen moments ago. But in this case, I have attached a different metric, which is the percentage of weekend access, because this is relating to user access roles and the commission systems are properly defined. So if users are accessing the system in the weekend, which is a day off, which means they are not authorized unless there is some specific exception to access the system, then this means that there is something wrong with this control. So I have created this metric again from my ACL Robotics, and I have created this KPI, and I have automated the assessment of this control. So over here, I have defined that if less than 20%, which is the authorized number, maybe as per the policy of the organization, let's just be in that logic for the purpose of this walkthrough. So let's say that the company has defined that if less than 20% of the users access on a weekend, which means that these are the defined users that have access. Maybe they work weekend shifts, maybe they are executives that have the freedom of accessing the system at any point of time for different reasons. This is not working effectively because it is greater than or equal to 20%. And that is why the system has defined this as exceptions noted. It is because the result of this KPI does not meet the threshold of this control. So this is resulting in 33.4%, which is greater than 20%, which means that there is a red flag over here and I need to handle this. In this case, and for this specific case, an issue has been created. So I can directly create an issue. As you can see over here, I can just click on add issue and it will be linked directly to this control. I can put the title, description, who is the owner, what is the issue type, the date identified, this will be automatic, of course, severity, whether I want it to be published in my audit report or not, and if I have any recommendation. More on scope and escalation. These are all, these are not mandatory, so only the required fields, as you can see over here, are the mandatory ones. So let's go into an issue, into the issues page to see how we are able to go into to create an issue. So if I go again for the same example, user access on weekends, this issue had been created. So this has been signed off, and that's why I cannot edit anything. But because I was the one myself who signed off on this issue, I can remove my sign off if I would like to edit anything in this issue. So, sorry. Okay. So in this issue, I have created my title, my description, who is basically I'm the owner, the remediation, the issue type, the severity, whether it is maybe high, medium, or low, whether it is a deficiency or a management recommendation, and whether I want it to be published or not in my audit report. And I can put the ID, the risk, and the impact. If I would like to add any escalation level, cause and effect, cost impact, all of this can be added as well. The more interesting part is the follow-up and remediation of these issues. So over here, I can put what is the status, overall status of my issue, whether it is in whether it's still open or closed. I can put the remediation status. What is the status of the current remediation? In which step of the remediation are we right now? Is it still open? Are we awaiting management response? Management are remediating, awaiting verification, audit verifying, reopened, or finally closed. So either or. Then I have my remediation plan. I can put anything over here as my remediation plan, what I want to see. My deadline, the remediation deadline for this issue to be closed and finalized. And whenever it is closed and finalized, I can put the actual date for when that happened. Sometimes we are able to achieve the remediation before the due date. So this is very good. And we can put that over here. But sometimes we cross this due date and we also need to put this the actual remediation date. When was this actually finalized? Then I am able to add my actions, and this is where the automation happens. Whenever I add actions, so I have added 3 actions. I have assigned I am the owner, the due date for each action, and over here we can see the status. So investigate system activities on weekend, revoke access to those that are not authorized, and take appropriate measures against the people who have committed unauthorized activities. So this is the remediation that I want to undergo as an auditor. So if I just go into any of these, I can see that I have put the title. This is assigned by me, obviously. And then over here, I can assign the owner of this. Now, for the purpose of this walkthrough, I have assigned myself, just not to bother my colleagues with notifications and reminders from the system. So, but if I want to assign any of the people that are in my organization and are users, and they should be, in most cases, these people are the business owners. So these people are from the business department. And in this case, maybe from the IT department, I have put someone, assigned someone based on their approval, of course, to handle this issue and to remediate this issue. I can send a notification right now, or I can send a weekly reminder. So this is where the automation happens. I do not have to go into my email or maybe into my full audit issues and then follow up on each issue and each action plan inside an issue and see who is the owner of this action plan in order to send a reminder or pick up the phone and say, hey, please, we need an answer on this issue. Can you please update us? So the system will do that for you. The system will send weekly reminders and on-the-spot notifications to the owner of this action, because every action might require a different owner. So imagine having to go into each of these actions in each of the issues and having to manually send out reminders and follow up on this. So our system will do that for you. And over here, you can see, you can put a description, you can put maybe the owner's manager in CC and your manager in CC, just to be in the loop of what's happening with this action and check out the reminders and maybe exert some pressure if needed at a certain point of time to get this done. The due date, we can also put the due date for this action, not for the whole issue, but for this specific action to be completed. And we can put the priority, whether this is high, medium, or low, what is the state, and the actual completion date of this action. Whenever the user wants to update the action, they can put in what is the status, and if there is anything that we need to, any file that we might want to use from from our computer, or from we can just drag and drop it if we want to put any comment. So this is the update page where if we want to update anything related to this action. So by doing so, we have moved from planning, so from the first step, which is the planning, into the fieldwork, the risk and control matrix, testing the controls, creating the issues for the controls that have failed, and finally we are able to see the results of this project. So as you can see over here, we have reached 77% assurance because our inherent risk score, and these come from the assessment of the predefined risks in this project, and the residual risk score is the result of the controls that have been tested as operating effectively. And over here you can see it is at 77% because out of the maybe 8 or 9 controls, maybe there are 2 that have failed, and we have created issues for this failure. You can see over here the issues by severity. So I have 1 medium, 1 high, and 1 low. And by type as well, I have 1 management recommendation and 2 deficiencies. I can put my my conclusion and rating for this audit project. I can put the description, and I can put the management response. If I need to attach any resulting files, any results files, any fieldwork reports, any supporting work papers, I can do that without any restriction, regardless of what the nature of that file is or what is the type of that file. And finally, whenever I am done, I will have, okay, so before going into the report, I would just like to mention that this is a brand new functionality that has been released by Diligent, which is the controls page, where you are able to see an overall view of all your controls, the testing and the walkthrough of these controls in this specific project. So as you can see over here, these are my controls, and here over here I can see all the details, to which objective is it related, what is the title, what is the description, who is the owner or level of the owner, and the results for the testing and for the walkthrough. Now, as we were able to see, all the walkthroughs were designed appropriately, and in the testing we had 2 failures over here. So if I click on this, it will take me directly to that control that has failed, so I'm able to manage it and if I need to do anything about it. So this is a brand new functionality that has been we have been blessed with from Diligent, and this will be able to really ease the work of governing the controls in each specific project, rather than just seeing all the controls in the mission control application for all the controls that are in your organization for all the projects. That is still available, of course, but this will provide an easier way to dig down deeper into specific projects. So over here, I can also filter, for example. I can add any filter that I would like. What is the control? Or is so I can perform any filter on these controls as well, and I can here choose what I want to see, whether if I want to see only the ones that have tested effectively this time, or I want to see the ones that have exceptions noted, or the ones that have not started, if there are any. So this is all applicable in this new page. So just wanted to mention that. Finally, everything that we have done in this project, everything that we have populated, so starting from planning to fieldwork to results to creating the issues, everything will be, so to remove the hassle and to remove the wasting of time for you guys to create a final or a draft audit report, Diligent and HighBond, of course, have made this easier for you, where everything is auto-generated into a report. So you will have an auto-generated report that is fully populated with everything that you have done, in this project, and this is it right now. You can download it in Excel, PDF, Word, or PowerPoint. We are going to see the one now with the sales commission audit. So this is the full report, and please bear in mind that we did not do anything manual over here. Everything has been auto-generated and auto-populated in this report. And if, let's say, I know what most of you might be thinking, that, well, okay, everything is auto-generated in this final audit report, but it is not our template. It's not our company template, which we use and which we are used to and which our management are happy with. So I can answer that by saying that we are able to, Diligent is able to create that exact template that you currently use if you are happy with it and you want to stick with it. And then whenever you perform an audit, all your work will be auto-generated and auto-populated in that specific format and that specific report. But now we are going just to show the generic and the default report that is available by Diligent. So you will have your conclusion and rating as you have defined it in your in the system, and you will have the start date, the completion date, the table of contents. So what are we going to see in this report? The purpose, background, and scope. So as you can see over here, these are auto-generated in this report. You will have your results. So issues by severity, the overall assurance, again, the conclusion and the rating, and the issue by owner. Now, because this is a walkthrough or demo environment, I am the only owner, but let's say you have 3 issues, and these 3 issues are related to 3 different owners from the business departments. So you will see who are the owners over here rather than just saying one name. You will have your conclusion rating description as you have identified in HighBond. You will have your results summary. So you only have one objective in this case, which includes many risks and controls, of course. You have reached 77% assurance, 19 have passed, 2 has failed, and 1 has not been tested. I think we covered that in walkthroughs, so that's why it's showing as 1. If I download this report again, it will show as 0 here. Anyway, that is not important. And I have 3 issues. Over here, we will have our issue summary. So user access on weekends, who is the owner, severity, remediation deadline for each of these issues. And finally, we can see these issues in details. So if we take the first issue, which is ensure appropriate commission payments, for example, which is related, to the objective of ensuring appropriate commission payments. This is the user access on weekends. We can see the overall status is still open. The severity is high. We have not done an escalation level. The remediation is still open. The deadline for the remediation and the date for when this issue was identified by the auditors. Description, risk and impact, recommendation, and remediation plan. And this will go on for each of the issues as well. So basically, this is your final audit report or draft audit report. Again, I mentioned that if you want this to be done in your own template, in your own format that you currently use, but you want HighBond to auto-populate everything into that format, that can be done as well. So for this, we can conclude on the audit side of our software on HighBond. And please bear in mind that, let me share my screen again and show you, just to remember the PowerPoint that we have done. So in this slide, projects that we have just seen, we have used it for an audit project, but this project can also be used for compliance and risk assessment. The terminology will change, yes, but everything will remain the same in terms of the logic behind this project. So you will need to go into fieldwork. You will need to perform testing either on procedures or on requirements or on controls. You will need to create observations, or you will need to create issues. So the logic is the same, but based on the nature of the project, whether it's audit control or audit compliance or risk, that just some terminology and some steps might change in this project's module. So we have covered this. We have seen how we can automate with robotics. We have seen the manual data, and now let's go into compliance to see how we are able to do compliance. We have until 11:30 to finish this, so we will try to go over it in a faster pace. Okay. So we are done with our audit. We come back again to Launchpad. Let's just refresh to make sure it is still active. Okay, perfect. So compliance maps. The first thing that we need to do in compliance maps is that we need to identify what are the standards and regulations that we need to be in compliance with. So as Nazim already mentioned, we can do that. If you want to create your own, that is totally fine. You can create your own standard and regulation, your own compliance program. Maybe because it is a part of your organization, so your organization has implemented this, or maybe it's something that is a local regulation that is not included in the library that is available from Diligent. So Diligent is also on a case-by-case basis and subject to approval. We are also, if you give us a certain regulation or standard, we are able to embed this in your HighBond organization, so you will not have to create it on your own. It will be there for you to use, even if it is specific to your organization or to your country or to your location or region. However, if you would like to use any of the big variety of standards and regulations that are available to you in our content library, as you can see over here, you have the freedom to do that. So all of these are embedded in HighBond. Some of them are charged, some of them are free of charge for you to use. So all of these are available for you to use, such as, let's say, ISO. So you can see ISO 27001, ISO 27002. You can see, let's say, COVID 2019. This is the new one that has been added. You can see COVID 5 framework. So all of these are available in HighBond in the content library. Then whenever I choose which of these I want to use, it will be recorded in my compliance maps, and I am free to use it. So just to give you an example, if I choose to use COVID 5 framework, everything will be defined in this framework. I will literally have to do nothing but assign controls to this framework, to this regulation and standard. I have to do nothing because I have used it from the template or from the content that is available in HighBond. Everything in this program is populated. So APO, BAI, DSS, EDM, MEA, all these are, I'm sure as most of you know, are part, all the parts and the main parts of COVID 5. And then it goes into the deepest level of details. So each child requirement along with its child requirement. So you can see the level of details you can go into. And this is totally up to you whether you want just to provide assurance on the top level requirement or just go into deeper and then again deeper details while you are doing your while you are assigning controls to these requirements in compliance. So let's just use one of the requirements over here, which is the FCA handbook that is already populated. So as you can see over here, these are the set of rules and regulations in which under the program that is called FCA handbook, and this is only for walkthrough purposes, that we need to be in compliance with. So if we go into the first one, we can see that all of these details are here. We can choose whether this is applicable in our organization, because sometimes even if we want to be compliant with a general standard and regulation, but the requirement might not, the specific requirement in this standard might not apply to our company, and whether we want to cover this or not. Now, it is very important to see that we have linked a control from a framework, and this control in the framework has been tested in a certain project. So here we are moving from compliance maps into frameworks, and this is where we have mapped the control that is relating to this requirement. So as you can see over here, this has failed, and there is one issue that has been created. And we are going to see, if we click on this framework link, it will take us directly to that framework for which we have that requirement that is recorded. So these are the requirements. And over here, this is the framework that we use whenever we want to import into projects and test these requirements. Now, going back into projects, as we have mentioned, this time we are going to tackle projects from a compliance perspective. And we are going to see this project, which is FCA compliance monitoring, from a compliance monitoring perspective. And as you can see over here, if we go into settings, this is the type of this project is compliance investigation. The project that we were just saying for sales commission audit, it was an internal audit operation. So this is how we are able to differentiate between the terminology and the project type whenever we want to undergo a certain project. So in this case, we are doing a compliance investigation or examination. We have already discussed about the dashboard, about the planning. I will go directly into the monitoring part. So instead of calling it fieldwork, this is now monitoring because it is related to compliance monitoring. And we go into the requirement monitoring part, where we are able to assess whether a certain issue has been noted or not. This is all the same when we want to use the 3 methods, which we have already mentioned, where we are able to see, we can list a certain document, use citation mode. We have already covered that. We can do the controls performance, which we have not yet covered, and I will show you now how we use it. And we can add or remove any of these metrics. So let's say, I don't think there's any metric right now that makes sense, but I'll just choose any of these metric just to show you how easy it is to link this metric. I can delete the one that has an error. So this is 100% metric. Okay, and if I want to automate this, I can just click on automate, choose the metric that I want, and define something. So let's say I want this to be successful. So if it is less than 100, then no issues. And if it is greater than or equal to 100, then there are certain issues. So we are able to automate this if we would like to automate this, but it's not always the case where we would like to automate this this identification or this monitoring result. So here, because we have seen how we use metrics, how we are able to automate, and we have seen how we use citation mode, we are going to see how we are able to use controls performance in order to make an informed decision. So let's say we have a certain task that we want, let's say we have a certain questionnaire that we want to receive information from on a scheduled basis, let's say on a weekly or on a monthly or even on a daily basis. We want to receive information from stakeholders in our company. What we can do is that we can create a new schedule. And in this new schedule, the first thing we have to do is choose the questionnaire that we want to use, okay? And let's say in this case, we want to use the performance review questionnaires. If I click on view, you can see now that this is the questionnaire that we have created. This is the first question. This is the sub question, and I'll show you what that means in a moment. And this is another question, and this is here to sign. Now, if I want to add any question, let's say I'm creating a certain questionnaire, I can use any of these response types that you can see over here in order for my recipients to see. So I can choose a single choice answer, drop down, multiple choice, short answer, paragraph, numeric scale, date, email, attachment, and signature. So all of these are available for me to use whenever I'm creating a survey or a questionnaire and I want to distribute to my users. Okay. Now, once I have chosen which questionnaire I want to distribute, I can then go ahead, choose the title, who are the performers. So any title that I want, I can either put here the, let's say, the email of a certain person or a group of people, or I can choose from the list of users that I have in my environment. So, and I can choose, of course, more than one, let's say. Okay, so I can choose who are the users that I want to, who are the performers that will receive this questionnaire. Then I can type in any procedure that I like. And then the most important part is the frequency. So when do I want this to run? Do I want this to run on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, quarterly, or every defined period of time? So if I choose every, then I can say that I want this to run, let's say, every 3 days, because this is not available in my list. But for the purpose of this walkthrough, we are going to choose it on a monthly basis. Let's say I want this to run on the first day of each month, or I can choose maybe on the 5th day, or maybe on the 21st, or maybe on the last. So this is all up to me. I can choose what time I want this to run. So I want this to run at 8 a.m. on the first day of every month. And then I can choose the time zone that I would like to have. So I can then choose which time zone I am in. I can choose what is the time that I want this questionnaire to be sent out. And then I can choose the frequency of this questionnaire. So once I have done that, from a compliance officer perspective, let's take this now from a recipient perspective. Let's say I am the one in the business department that is receiving this questionnaire. I will receive a link to my email, and whenever I click that link, it will take me directly into this questionnaire that you see over here. I can see all the details that are relating to this questionnaire. So from where did this questionnaire come? Which project is it related? What is the control name, the schedule, the objective, everything I can see over here. And please bear in mind that these can be also revoked. So it doesn't mean that I can hide everything from the recipient. If I just don't want them to see why am I sending this questionnaire, I just want them to answer. I can hide all these details, and over here they will see a blank page. So as a user, let's say I'm answering this question. I can just go ahead and say, have you completed this month? If yes, then okay, I can move to the other question. But if I click on no, it is going to ask me, why did it not get done? And I have to explain myself. Why did this not get done? Right? And then let's say if I click on yes, then and whether I click on no or yes, I will then, because this is required over here, I will have to attach a certain evidence. So I need to choose any file from my computer or I can drag and drop any file from my computer and I can put it over here. And then finally, I can e-sign over here in order to validate and to be held accountable for my answers, that yes, I am the one who answered these questions and I'm responsible for my answers. And of course, to eliminate any trial of a fraud, maybe someone is trying to answer on my behalf. So I need this signature to make sure that I am protecting myself and at the same time I am being held accountable for my answers. So whenever I answer, all the recipients answer these questionnaires, they will be held in a table in HighBond. And later on, when we go into continuous monitoring walkthrough, we are going to see these tables, how they are in HighBond in the results application. So all of these are recorded and I can make an informed decision on this. So by doing so, I have used my manual data, which is dragging and dropping a certain document and furthermore using citation mode. I have used my human data method where I have done my control performance. I have sent out certain questionnaires for recipients to answer. So it is automatically being sent out and the answers are automatically being saved and recorded. And which we have seen already before, it is the robotics where we are able to attach a certain KPI and automate the assessment of this control. In turn, if this has failed, I can also create an issue. So this will be the same as in the project we have seen before. I have my issue recorded over here, and I have defined what are my issues. Sorry, what's the issue information. I have defined some action plans. I have put the details, and this will all be basically the same. In results, I can also, if I perform assurance, I can see that as well. And then I can download any of these reports that are auto-generated, same as we have seen before. So basically, this is a quick walkthrough on compliance, and we are definitely able to do a more detailed walkthrough on each of these parts that are audit, risk, and compliance in a assigned session to any of you guys. So we can arrange that as well. So we still have maybe around 20 minutes, 23 minutes. We are going to use that time to see strategy. So strategy, when we talk about strategy, it means we are tackling the enterprise risk management side. So over here, we are able to handle everything that is related to enterprise risk management. So the first step that we need to do is that we need to define our strategy map. So first of all, we need to define what are our strategic objectives. And these are not our short-term goals, but rather maybe yearly goals or long-term goals, which we would like to achieve in our organization. So once we have defined these strategic objectives, we need to define what are the entities that are related and that need to take control of these strategic objectives. Now, over here, the entities in this case, you can see that these are departments. However, if these need to change, so maybe we are not dealing with departments in this case, maybe we are a holding company and we have companies under our holding that will need to handle strategic objectives, or maybe we have one company but in different regions and we need to assign this by location or by region, maybe by division, not by department. So this is all can be configurable based on your preference. Even here, the names can be changed as well based on your preference, and we are going to see that in settings as we move through this application. So once I have defined my strategy map and made the links over here, and it is very easy to link anything. So let's say I just create test objective. And this is how I'm able to link. I can just directly choose which department do I want it to be related to, and it will directly be created. And the same thing goes for department. I can, let's say, create test department. And then I can choose which strategic objective do I want it to be related to. So these are very easy to use. Our system is very user-friendly. It is very easy to use and nothing is complicated about it. Then after strategy, after defining our strategy map, we need to go into our risk profile where we are able to see our risk register. Now, you can see assess, accept, continuously audit, mitigate, and transfer. Again, all of these can be modified. So maybe you will need to have 3 fields instead of 5. Maybe you need to change the names of each of these fields. So all of these are manageable. All of these are configurable. Again, this is configuration and not customization, that in order to best fit your requirement, to make you comfortable with using the system, maybe to you will feel more comfortable if the terminology more relates to what you are used to. So everything here is configurable. Before going into managing a certain risk, I'd just like to mention that here we have our time machine, which is very important. And so let's say this is my risk register at the moment. This is my risk register on October 14, 2021. So let's say I wanted to see how my risk register looked like in September, and maybe let's say January 2021. At the beginning of the year, I want to see how it looked like on maybe January 3rd. So this is how it looked like. You are viewing time machine data from January 3rd, and this is how it looked like. Okay, some of the risks are not there. Some of them are in different fields, and as you can see over here, at that time we used to call it assess, accept, reduce, avoid, and transfer. But if I then here exit the time machine, I can see that at the moment I have more risks in assess. I have chosen to reduce, to replace continuously audit, and I have chosen avoid to replace it with mitigate. And so everything can be seen at any point of time using the time machine. Now, to go into managing this risk, let's say we are going to see a revenue assurance risk. This is a strategic risk which we want to manage at the moment. If we go into this risk, we can see that we have also attached. So first of all, we can add the details, and these again can be configurable. So maybe you don't want to see, you want to include all of these. Maybe you want to change something in these. So this is all configurable. Then you can link a metrics. As we have linked a metric to automate the assessment of this control, to automate the assessment of any control, we can link a metrics to automate the assessment of any strategic risk as well. So once we have added the metric, we can go into the assessment. Now, we have, based on the strategy map that we have already created, we are able to define here which strategic objective is affected by this strategic risk. So this is the strategic risk, which is revenue assurance risk. And now we need to say which strategic objective is affected. In this case, the double-digit revenue growth, which is the sales in this case, is affected by the revenue assurance risk. And because in my strategy map, I have defined that this strategic objective is related to these departments, then these departments fall under assessment, and you can see them over here. So just to give a quick example, let's say I want to add top talent retention and development. Let's say, for example, this is related to this strategic objective. Top talent retention and development is related to this strategic risk, this revenue assurance risk. If I click on it, you can see automatically that the HR departments have been added to the departments that require assessment. And why is that? It is because in strategy map, we have defined that the departments responsible for the success of this strategic objective is the HR department, and that is why they have been added. And if I remove it again, and I click on remove, we can see that these have been removed. Now, to move into the likelihood and the impact, and yes, we can here add different fields. So we can have, let's say, likelihood, impact, and velocity. So velocity is in order to see how rapidly this, how rapid is this risk evolving. And maybe we want to assess based on different impacts. So maybe we want to assess on financial impact and on performance impact and on reputational impact. So that is also possible to assess based on different impacts. So basically, we have two ways of assessing a risk. The first one is manual. We just click on it and choose whether it is, let's say, low, medium, or high likelihood. And again, we are using here a 3-point scale for this walkthrough. But if you want to customize any or configure any scale, whether it is a 5-point system, 7-point system, or any specific scale that I want to use that is not a standard, I can do that from settings, and we will see that in a few moments. So this is the first method that I can use in order to provide assessment. The second one is through automation. And this is, of course, the one that is recommended for everyone to use, that eliminates the manual hassle of having to go into the system and amend or modify any assessment because something has changed. So this here is a key risk indicator. As you can see, it's a KRI, which has been derived from our robotics capability. And over here, we are able to say or define the threshold for this assessment. So if we want this to be greater than 1,400, if this KRI is greater than 1,400, then it is at a low likelihood of happening. If it is between 1,000 and 1,400, then it is at a medium likelihood of happening. And if it is less than or equal to 1,000, then it is of a high likelihood of happening. And I have enabled this assessment driver to run on an automated basis. So again, if this KRI changes at any point of time, it will apply to these thresholds. So let's say this has become 900. The next time I run this, robotics runs this report, and a new KRI result is derived, and it is now at 900 for some reason. Then it will automatically change this assessment. This will become at a high likelihood of happening because the data has changed, the situation has changed. So of course, based on that situation that has changed, the assessment will need to be modified. If I was using a manual method, then I will need to come into the system and click manually on this likelihood like this and change the result. But if I was using a metric and I have automated this assessment, whenever this KRI is updated, the system will automatically update the assessment of this likelihood, as we have just mentioned. So these are the two types that we can use to perform the assessment. And here it comes down to, of course, low is 1, medium is 2, 3 is high, and you do the calculation, you will have your inherent risk score. Now, up till this point, we have done our assessment. Now we need to do our treatment. When we need to do our treatment, it means that we need to link certain treatment from our software. And how do we link a treatment? We link it from frameworks. Or, of course, we can also link it from any project. In this case, we have linked it from the operational risk assessment treatment. We have used this as a treatment, and we have used these 3 objectives as a treatment. Why have we chosen these objectives? Because the controls that are in these objectives that have been tested in projects, as you remember, we do the testing in projects. The controls that have been tested in projects are relating to the mitigation of this strategic risk. So we might have created this project for the sole purpose of mitigating this risk. And yes, this can be done, and it is mostly done. This is mostly the case. So we have linked the treatment from frameworks, and we have done the testing in projects, as we have seen, as well as we have seen for audit and for compliance. We can also do the same for a risk project. And then after applying this treatment, we are able to derive our total residual risk score. So it has dropped from 9.0 until 3.7. This is the inherent risk score at 9.0. After applying our treatment, the residual risk score is 3.7. Finally, we are able to derive our assurance. We are at 80.6% assurance at this moment. And these are the treatment areas. This explains why we are at 80.6% assurance. Now, I have done this on purpose to show you the 3 scenarios which you might see in the treatment area. The first one is that we have tested the controls and they have passed. So 11 controls have passed. 1 has failed, and this is why we are at 81% assurance. However, for the remaining objectives, which include the controls that we need to test, the testing has not yet started. These controls are not yet tested, and whenever they are tested, naturally they will either fail or they will pass, and this in turn will contribute to this overall assurance percentage. So let's say all of these pass. This is 100, 100, the 30 pass and the 16 pass. Then this will contribute to the overall assurance. This will become 100, this will become 100, and this is 81, and then you can just divide by 3 and you will get your overall assurance. So assurance is an expression of confidence that a risk is effectively mitigated. We are 80.6% sure that this risk has been mitigated, but technically we are not at that point because we have controls that are yet to be tested. So whenever we perform the testing and get the results of the assurance, it means how many have failed, how many have passed. This will be our overall view for the overall assurance. And this is why the treatment areas are in place, to give you a background on how this is derived and whether this is covering the full picture or just one part of the testing. Finally, couple of things more I want to show are the strategy heat map. So this is our strategy heat map. This is the total score on the X and Y axis. And over here, you can see your departments in the strategy map. And over here, you are able to see our strategic objectives. And these are the scores based on each of these. So you have from top down, you have your departments, and they have a score at the end. And over here, you have your strategic objectives, and there is the score corresponding horizontally. We can see this in inherent view or in residual view. So let's say this is just to give an example. In inherent view, the 30% debt reduction, which belongs to operations department, is at 31% risk score. Inherent risk score at 31.0, sorry, not percent, 31.0 inherent risk score. And if we move to residual, we can see that, which means residual, it means that we have applied a treatment. So this has dropped to 22.5, the same strategic, the same area, which is 30% debt reduction, which belongs to operations, has dropped to 22.5 as a residual risk score. And the furthermore we apply treatments, the more it will drop as well. So another example might be double-digit revenue growth for sales. So inherent risk score was 37% relating to sales, which is double-digit revenue growth. In residual, it has dropped to 29.1 because we have applied some treatment. The second heat map is the risk heat map, so this is very important to see. As I have mentioned in the beginning, very important to see where we have what are the risks that are currently posing the most threat in our organization, right? So these risks might be posing the most threat, and we need to show that to our management, to our board, to our executives. in order for them to make informed decisions on how much effort we need to put on a certain risk, or how much, excuse me, or how much resources we need to put into this risk. So as you can see over here, this is the impact and the likelihood. And every time we move, so this poses the most threat in the red to orange yellow area. And as we move to the downwards to the left, we can see that in the blue and green area, it means that these risks do not pose a great threat. And if I hover over any of these risks, I can see that cybersecurity holds the #1 score in the risks, which means that I probably need to take more care of this risk and put in more effort and resources to remediate this risk. And I can see that the total likelihood score is 14, 15, and the inherent and the risk heat and risk score. And this risk might be related to many strategic objectives and not just one. So if I hover from the list, I can see the same, and it will be mapped into my, as you can see, so #2 is relating to this one. So if I hover from here, it will appear in the graph, or if I hover from the graph, it will appear in my risk. And I can download this as well, and I can save it whenever I want. So finally, there are the risk workshop, which means that I can perform a workshop which I can share with all the people in my company, and then they will be able to share their insight on the assessment of these risks. So as you can see over here, I can include the people, I can include who are the participants that are related to this workshop. And these participants from they might be in the IT department, they might be in the finance department. So it depends on what is the subject. They will be able to put their input on the assessment and what they think the assessment should be for this one. And us as risk managers, as a risk department, we are the ones to choose whether we want to add this to our risk register or our risk profile, or we do not want to add it. So over here in the risk workshop, it means that this is a, let's say, as the name suggests, a workshop with our stakeholders, with all the business departments, to get their input and their view on what are the risks that are currently happening in our organization. And if we see that this should be added to our risk profile after investigating, after testing, after doing our work as risk professionals, then we can incorporate that into our risk profile. Yeah, so, and finally, as I have promised, one more thing we did not see, and this is very important, I'm sorry for missing that, it is the risk library. So in the risk library, these are all strategic risks that are available for you 100% to use in your risk register. So if you want to create your risk register and you currently don't know from where to start, or that you have certain risks that you have in mind but don't know how to articulate or how to document, all of these are available to you to use in your own risk profile. And you can divide them, you can filter by category. So you have compliance, operational, reporting, strategic. For example, these are the strategic ones. These are the compliance ones. So, and then you can divide them by the available industries, such as COVID-19 pandemic, financial services, maybe general, if there is nothing industry specific, healthcare, manufacturing, engineering, and technology. So you can use these, you can download these risks at any point of time and put them in your risk register and start managing them, as we have just seen with revenue assurance risk. The final step that we are going to see is settings. As we have mentioned, these are the users. So you can, as an admin, if you are an admin, you can revoke and provide access. This is the strategy map. So as I have mentioned, maybe you don't want to call this department, you want to call this, you want to use locations or divisions, or you might use subsidiary companies or sister companies. So you can change the naming of this and put, let's say here, region, or I don't know, location. So you can put anything and it will be mapped into your strategy map. And the same thing goes for the right column, which is strategic objectives. You can also alter that. In the risk profile, you can, if you click on update over here, you can see that these can be changed as well. So if I don't want assess, if I don't want accept, so maybe I want this to be whatever test or any other word that I would like to use, I can do that. And if I want to remove any of these fields, I can also do that. Maybe I only want to see 3 or 4 columns. Then we can change our scoring. So as we were using our 3-point system method, 3-point severity scale for likelihood and impact. If I would like to add any scale, I can definitely do that. So if I want, maybe I can add the name, the description, then I can choose whether I want it to be 3 points, 5 points, or 10 points. Or if I just want to have it as I want, maybe I want a 4 scale. So if I just click on cancel, I will have 4 scales that I want. Maybe I want to have 7 or 6 rather than 3, 10, and 3, 5, and 10 as they are defined in the system. So this is totally up to me on the scale. So it has changed to custom. Instead of having the predefined ones, 3, 5, 10, this has changed to custom because now I have only included 4, and I can change the name and put in the description for each one. Assessment drivers, if I need to, so these are the ones that are working as metrics, because these are the metrics that are currently in my as assessment drivers. These are the ones that are currently automating our assessments. These are the attributes, so I can, as I have mentioned, we can add or delete from these, or we can change them as well from the overview of any risk as the risk attributes. I can add tags, and I can also do my notifications as well. I can personalize my experience as it suggests over here. So this is a full walkthrough on our system from audit to risk compliance. More is coming on ITRM, TPRM, and robotics. So I hope this was beneficial. I hope you have enjoyed this walkthrough. And my time is up, and now we are moving to Mushtaq to maybe run a video of ITRM and TPRM. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Elias. Very interesting presentation and walkthrough on the audit, risk, and compliance. With this, we will run the video on the just released IT risk management and third-party risk management for the region. And in the afternoon session, we will have we'll have a interactive session with Tom Ryan of Diligent. With this, I will ask my colleague Shilpa to run the video. Thank you.
Yes. Is it audible?
No, so we cannot hear the video.
You cannot hear? Just give me a minute.
Shilpa, I don't think we can hear this.
Hi, is it audible?
No, for me, I cannot hear it. I don't know if any others can hear it. Maybe Mushtaq can confirm.
Can anyone confirm,
No,
please?
no.
No, it is not audible.
No, there is no audio.
Okay, give me a quick minute.
Okay, so let me start the robotics presentation. We can have a robotics presentation and until this technical issue is resolved. So
Yeah,
just give
sure.
me
Yeah.
a second
Go ahead. Yeah.
and we can do that. Okay, Mushtaq, you can see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes, I can see.
All right, perfect. So we are going now to see a presentation on ACL Robotics while we fix the issue with the audio for the video. And later on, after lunch and after the discussion with for ITRM and TPRM, we are going to have, or maybe directly after lunch, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to see a walkthrough on ACL Robotics and how we perform continuous control monitoring. So ACL Robotics. What is ACL Robotics? It is a solution that combines analytics, machine learning, RPA, and reporting workflows, which means, as we have discussed, we can link to different systems. If we have one system in place, we can link it to different system. We can do analysis since it is an analysis tool, and we can monitor all the transactions that are happening. We can report on red flags, we can report on exceptions, we can report on KPIs, KRIs, everything that we need to do. So we are able to do that with ACL Robotics. Why will you love ACL Robotics? Because you have machine learning, which is a new capability that we have embedded, and we will see it later on in this presentation. We have the automation part, which is robots, where you are able to schedule all your tasks. So if you have a certain repetitive task, let's say you have a script, and this script needs to run on a repetitive basis, instead of having to go into analytics and run it manually, the robots will take care of it. It will run the script, and then the data will be updated, as we have seen in audit, compliance, and risk. The KPIs, the results of the KPIs and the KRIs are all related to robots, are all related to when this robot is scheduled to run, and in turn it will run the script and the data will be updated. Finally, on reporting and workflows, this will allow you to do the assessment, as it mentions over here, automate the follow-up and remediation, monitor KPIs, and create visualizations. All of these are related to robotics, and the KPIs, the visualizations, the follow-up, the assessments, all of these are related to the data that is backed up in analytics and that is automated using robotics. So the features, As you can see over here, Analytics 15, it supports basic and ad hoc analysis. You can work online or offline. You can link to various data sources, and you have machine learning commands. In the results application, which we'll also see as well, and in the robots model, which we also see, we can, for example, publish robot outputs. We can remediate results, visualize results, create dashboards and visualizations from our storyboards application. And in robots, we are able to do to schedule the tasks to run on a scheduled basis, and this will automate the purpose of having robotics. So it will be able to run your reports at a scheduled basis without you having to go into the script and running it on a manual basis. So you have script versioning. Maybe you need different forms of a script, the same script in different forms. It is also covered in robots. You can publish the results, and you can have either on-prem or on cloud. So this is totally up to you. So the technological advancements for robotics is modern BI, which means that you can have everything under one analytics platform, either for reporting or for visualizing or for analytics. You do not. The second one means that you do not need to be a data scientist in order to create reports on analytics, and this is very important to understand. In order to use analytics or machine learning in our software in ACL Robotics, you do not need to be a data scientist. You can be a business user because it has been created, and the target audience for this software are the business users. It is not data scientists, it is not computer developers, it's not computer engineers. This is targeted for auditors, compliance officers, risk officers, etc., which are from a business background. You have your automation, as we have mentioned with robots. You have integration with business applications, and you have cloud and on-prem ease of use. So in analytics, it has the capability of creating powerful analytics for compliance, audit, and risk professionals, where you are able to extract the data or import the data from your you are able to import the data from different databases or from Excel or from PDFs or from any data source. You are able to create your scripts without having to actually write any code. It is all depending on the click, drag and drop, etc. And we are going to see that in the demo. And then you will be able to finally report on your data, report on your results, either in GRC, in HighBond, or again in a flat file, which might be an Excel or any other file. You have over 120, as I have mentioned before, 120 plus built-in connectors, which you can connect to different data sources. So you are not, you don't have to go through the hassle of having to work with IT, to work with the vendor of that software, to work with anyone. All that you have to do is that you have to have username and password, and ACL will directly connect using these connectors to the database of your intention. So you might want to connect to SAP, as mentioned over here. You might want to connect to Salesforce. You might want to connect to Oracle, to Microsoft, to Twitter, to any of the databases that you want to import data from. And these are all covered in our built-in connectors. And if your system that you are using is not one of the 120 plus built-in connectors, we have the ODBC technology, which is open database technology, where you are able to use you are able to connect using ODBC DSN, and then you can import your data smoothly without any problem. So as it's mentioned over here, making it possible to connect to any business application and data source that falls in your scope of projects. So there is no limitation to the databases or to the applications that you want to connect with. So you have script repository and version control. This is in robots, as we have mentioned. So maybe you want to have different versions of the same script, different versions of the same report. That is also applicable. And all your scripts and your data will be centralized and under one application, under one software in one place. For all the intended and users that have been given access, they can view this data. So in visualization and reporting, you can have, this is a screenshot from storyboards. And as the picture mentions, show me, don't tell me, which means that you can prepare a storyboard or a dashboard, as you can see over here, and you can have live data being updated in these dashboards. So this is state of cybersecurity compliance report. So every time anything is updated from these, so each one of these is a report. It might be a metric, it might be the visualization coming from a certain report, and I can include my explanation as well. So every time any of these tables or metrics or visualizations are updated in robotics, it will directly be reflected into this dashboard, and the people who have access to this dashboard, anytime they access this dashboard, they will see the most updated and real-time data. So this will help you a lot in showing your work, in visualizing your work to yourselves, to your stakeholders, and to your boards and superiors. Robotic process automation, as I have mentioned before, you are able to automate. All the scripts, all the reports that you want. You are able to, instead of having to go manually perform the testing, manually run the scripts, and manually log into the software, you can do this using your robot. So your robot, you can consider him as your assistant, and you can schedule tasks for these robots in order to run certain scripts at any point of time. It might be at 3 a.m. in the morning while you're still at home sleeping. The robot will go into the software, it will run the script, it will generate the results, and whenever you come into your office in the morning, you will see that the results are ready for you to use. The data is all updated in the dashboards. The data is updated in your audit assessment, in your risk assessment, and in your compliance assessment. So there we provide a full integration with R and Python. This is for the more advanced users. If you would like to further go into data science, and if you would like to explore, Python and R are integrated with our analytics platform. We also have machine learning. So we have two types of machine learning. We have the supervised machine learning and the unsupervised logarithms that support machine learning. So for the supervised, it means that we need to train the data. So we provide training data. We need to train the robot based on a sample of data. The robot will run the machine learning supervised algorithms. It will understand the trend of the data, the outliers of the data, the red flags of the data. It will understand any abnormality. And then based on the training that we have provided for the data, based on our suggestions, we can predict what will happen in the future, what will most probably happen in the future. And this is where we call it predictive auditing, or predictive risk control, or predictive compliance monitoring. So this is how we use our machine learning in order to apply supervised algorithms, supervised training, and then supervised trends, which will predict what will most likely happen in the future based on the trends, based on the data that the robot has learned from this sample using the algorithms defined. And the unsupervised machine learning, which is the cluster command, where you are able to find any abnormality without training the data. So based on previous data, without providing any training to the robot, you are able to find abnormalities and maybe exceptions. And these are ranked into high, medium, and low risk, or any other scale that you would like to have, based on the abnormalities and the outliers of this data without providing any previous training. And it is all based on the algorithms that are predefined in our commands for machine learning, either supervised or unsupervised. So again, it's very important to know you do not need to be a data scientist. So you can be any business user, and yes, you can perform machine learning. And that is how all our clients around the world, they are in the audit department, they are in the risk, in the IT, and in compliance, and finance. So these are all considered to be non-data scientists, and they are using machine learning because the whole algorithm, the whole logic is predefined in our commands in analytics. And we are going to see that in the demo, that no data science knowledge is required whatsoever. The overcoming challenges, complex and costly setup so we don't need to have any complex setups. We have a central repository, so our data is not scattered. We have automation that does not require technical expertise, which is an added value. We are segregated between IT and the business. So whenever, as auditors, we want to perform any audit, we do not have to go to the IT and ask them for data. We can alter the database ourselves, we can import the data, and we can run our report. So this is a very clear segregation between IT and the users. And you can also apply machine learning and advanced analytics, and it does not require technical resources at all. And you can create a successful self-reserved reporting and data analytics program for operations managers and other stakeholders in a very user-friendly experience without having, again, to be technically knowledgeable. This is the architecture. So whether it is on cloud or on premise, we are not going to go into the technical area. And then over here, we have Script Hub and inspirations. So this is to drive return on investment. As we have mentioned, Script Hub in our toolkits and in our resources, there are hundreds of ready-made scripts based on different categories, different industries, different purposes. So these are ready-made scripts which you can use and just alter and modify the table names or the table fields that are related to your database. Other than that, the whole logic is there, the whole script is there. You can just plug and play. And you have inspirations, which means that in inspirations, you have ideas, you have brainstorming ideas on where to start, what to do, based on different industries, based on different businesses, based on different fields of work, on different positions. So this is inspirations, which allow you to, gives you ideas on where to start, what reports to start with, based on the area that you are working on. So this is all related to our HighBond Launchpad, to our HighBond platform, basically, which you have robots, storyboards, results, Script Hub, Academy, and toolkits. These are mainly the resources that we have mentioned at the beginning of when I started the session. These are all related to the resources. So the blueprint for robotics is acquire the data, analyze, automate, monitor and report, act on the results that you have evidenced from the reports that you have generated, and then learn how to mitigate these exceptions, learn how to solve your problems, and then let the reports and let ACL Robotics run again in this cycle to learn more and more and to find out how you can always improve and more efficiently monitor and perform continuous control monitoring. Thank you. This was for ACL Robotics. This is the presentation on how to automate and what are the main features. And then later on, after lunch, we are going to see a full walkthrough on ACL ACL Analytics, ACL Robotics, and on continuous control monitoring. So Mushtaq, over to you.
Yep, thank you, Elias. And we will now go back to the video on the IT risk management and third-party risk management. The technical issue has been resolved, and Shilpa will be playing it now. Thank you. Shilpa?
Yes, I'm sharing.
Computer. Alrighty, take it away, Vignesh.
Hey everyone, welcome to this demo of ITRM bond and third-party risk management bond. We're going to showcase how the product looks and what's the intent of the product, what we solve for, and how it's actually going to work for our customers today. Let me first start off with showing you ITRM bond. All right. So IT risk management is the problem area that we are solving on HighBond. The solution name is IT risk and compliance management, or what's more commonly known as ITRM bond. The primary use case that we are targeting with this particular solution is identifying, prioritizing, and managing the risk of IT assets and the IT environment. The secondary use case is to ensure adherence to IT policies and compliance requirements. The executive buyers that we will be targeting are your CISO, or the Chief Information Security Officer, and the Chief Compliance Officer. The primary customer needs that we're solving for with this particular solution aimed at IT risk management is, as a risk team, we want to manage our IT assets for risk in a single view and prioritize them by criticality factors. The second need that we're solving for is, as a risk team, we want to assess the risks and controls associated with our IT assets and monitor them to ensure compliance. These are the primary customer needs that we'll be looking at, and we'll be working, we'll show you how we solve for that going forward. This is our HighBond GRC domain model. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this particular domain model. It showcases how our entire platform works and how the different elements of the platform work together to solve for all GRC use cases. Now let's look at the first customer need for IT risk management. So here we want to we're looking at this from the perspective of the risk team. A risk team usually consists of risk analysts and a risk manager. All of them will perform the similar duties. The manager is more a people manager and an expert in terms of risk management. So this risk team, the main need that they have is to manage the IT assets for risk in a single view and prioritize them by criticality factors. And we're doing this with the help of the elements that we've brought in through Project Wondering, and that's using assets and the asset inventory. Looking at the second need is we want to assess the risks and controls associated with our IT assets, as well as monitor them continuously to ensure compliance. We'll be doing this with the help of a lot of the platform and existing functionality we already have, such as frameworks, projects, strategy, as well as compliance maps. We'll show how all of this is actually going to work on the software in a bit, but moving forward, now, what we're going to do here is we're going to show you the process or the general approach that risk teams take to solving for IT risk management. The first is that they consolidate your IT assets. They categorize them by criticality. This is done on the asset inventory. After that, they identify and assess the risks associated with those assets. They map and assess controls to mitigate those risks. Then they monitor them regularly for compliance. Also, they do manage IT policy exceptions with respect to the assets and the policies that apply to those assets. And this is done with the rest of the HighBond model. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Mai, who will go through the entire software and will show us how it all actually works on HighBond. Over to you, Mai.
Perfect. Thanks, Vignesh. I'll take over the screen share from you. All right, so now that Vignesh has set the stage, I'm going to be walking you through how this is actually going to work within the HighBond platform. Let me share my screen here. And coming back to that HighBond domain model methodology that we have, as Vignesh mentioned, I am the IT risk analyst, and I'm coming into the platform, and I want to consolidate all of my IT assets into one single central location. And that is going to be in this brand new asset inventory application that we have. And in order to categorize these assets by their criticality, I'm actually going to be using a combination of both human and digital data to perform that assessment, which you'll see shortly. So I am going to log into the HighBond platform, and I'm going to navigate over into this new asset inventory application. Once I log into my asset inventory application, I can see all of the various different asset types that are available to my organization here. So for example, I see hardware IT assets, software IT assets, as well as third parties. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to dive into the software IT asset as an example. So let me click into that. And once I click into the software IT assets, I can see all of the various software IT assets that I've already cataloged and sort of added into my inventory here. So for example, I can see Confluence in here, I can see Salesforce and Slack, and I can see all of the various attributes that have already been filled out for all of these IT assets. Of course, I can configure and sort and arrange all of the columns in here to customize it to my view. And perhaps I want to add a new IT asset in here. Say, for example, I want to add a new internet browser, but I just want to make sure that I'm not duplicating any of my efforts here. So I'm just going to quickly search for browsers, and I can see that I've already logged in Firefox and Google Chrome, but it looks like I'm missing Safari. So I'm going to go over here and click on this Add IT Asset button over here. And I'm going to go ahead and log this new IT asset into the system and just click on Add New Item. Once I do that, what it'll do is it'll actually create this asset details page for my new Safari asset. As you can see here, it is currently in a draft state. And I can see all of the attributes that are available for these IT assets. And I can go ahead and just start to fill out some of the attributes that I already know. So for example, I already know the business owner. That is actually Sarah McCormick. Hopefully I spelled that right. Sorry if I didn't. I know Vignesh is the technical owner for this asset, and I can give it a very secure, unique ID there. And I'm going to go ahead and fill out the description as well. So I'm just going to say that this is an internet browser. Now that I've got my basic details, I can go ahead and hit save. And now I want to pull your attention to this visual workflow that we have up top here. So as you can see, I can see the current state and the current actions I can take on this asset, as well as the future asset states that I can actually move this into. So for example, I have just clicked on register, so I can move it from a draft to a registered state. I can also see when the previous actions were taken, as well as current actions and future actions. Now, the really important thing that I want to point out about this visual workflow that you see here, as well as everything else that you're seeing on the screen, is that it all came pre-configured for me. So because I have purchased HighBond, Galvanize has done all of the heavy lifting, and they have actually gone in and configured this workflow for me. They've configured this asset type for me, as well as all of these attributes that you see down below. And if you have ever configured enterprise software, you know how many hours of training and configuration that this has saved me. And the icing at the top of the cake here is that all of this is based on industry best practices. So I know that my team is following the best workflow that there is for my IT asset management. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and move this from registered to categorized. I'm going to go ahead and start to categorize my Safari IT asset by its criticality. Now that you see that it's in the pending categorization state, I've got a couple different options that I can take from here, and I'm going to walk you through each one. So the first option that I have is that I can actually launch an assessment directly from this screen. Now, when I click on this button, what it's actually going to do is it's actually going to send a questionnaire to the business owner for this IT asset. So in this case, Sarah is actually going to receive an email in her inbox that leads to this IT asset categorization assessment questionnaire. Now, what Sarah can do is she can actually fill out the answers to this questionnaire to tell me a little bit more about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability for this Safari IT asset. So she can tell me what type of data is going to be stored on this IT asset, who actually has access to the data on this asset. She can tell me what are the legal and financial implications if this asset were to be compromised. And based on some other questions, she can also tell me what would happen if this asset suddenly became unavailable. What would be the operational or financial consequences of that be? Now, when Sarah completes this questionnaire and she hits submit to submit this into our HighBond system, what actually happens in the background is that we're actually going to trigger a workflow robot to run in the background. A workflow robot is basically going to spin up and is going to take the impact of the answers that Sarah has chosen, as well as in the future, we'll also incorporate question weighting as well. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to come back to this IT asset details page, and it's actually going to populate the confidentiality, integrity, and availability impact levels for me. So for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and enter these manually. So for example, it'll fill out the CIA ratings here as medium, low, and medium. And the second step that I can take from here is that I can actually hit this score button. And what this score button is going to do is that it would actually trigger another workflow robot to run. And it's actually going to take those CIA levels that have either been populated manually or populated by the workflow robot. It's actually going to aggregate all those three scores into one aggregate asset criticality level. So for example, in this case, maybe this one is marked as a medium. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to hit save here to push it through the rest of the workflow so I can actually just show you the end-to-end experience there. So now that I have completed my asset criticality rating on the Safari IT asset, I can go ahead and hit approve. Now, when I hit approve, you'll actually see that it goes and give it 1 sec here. Now it shows as categorized. And now if 6 months to a year down the line, I want to actually reassess the criticality and send out that questionnaire again, maybe the business owners have changed, maybe something has changed about this IT asset, I can certainly do so. I can push it back through that workflow again to go through the steps that I've just shown you.
Yep. If I may add in also for a few steps, the intent of this workflow is to ease in the burden of managing the scale of IT assets that we have. The way we've intended this workflow is that all your assets that are brought in either through integrations or manual uploads or bulk uploads will always be in your draft state. Once they're assigned an identifier in terms of your ID and the person responsible for the asset, we consider them to be registered and you can move them into that state. And then because of the sheer scale of assets, we need a way of prioritizing the assets that we're going to work on first in terms of the impact that they have for the security factors, which are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And that's the step that's for categorization. Also, I'd like to mention one more thing, that at all these different stages, there are certain mandatory fields that are required that we've defined, and all of them will be checked for to ensure that we have the right information in order to do risk assessment and categorization and so on.
Perfect. Thanks, Vignesh. All right, so as the IT risk analyst, I've gone ahead and I've consolidated all of my IT assets into one central location in my asset inventory, and I've also categorized them by criticality. The next step, as Vignesh mentioned in the beginning, is that we need to actually go through the risk assessment. So we actually need to identify and assess our risks related to those assets, and we actually need to map and assess those controls and actually do the control assessment for those assets. So what we're going to be doing next is we're actually going to be taking the asset types from our asset inventory, and we're actually going to be relating them and associating them to our control objectives or risk categories from our frameworks. And based off of that, what we can actually leverage is the existing relationship between frameworks and projects. Again, frameworks is kind of like the master repository of your risk and control matrix, and projects are where we conduct the downstream assessments around those risks and controls. And what we can do is, now that we've associated the asset types directly to the risk categories, the next step we can also take is to scope the individual assets directly to the specific risk and control assessments that we'll be performing in those downstream projects. Now here, I'm going to be flipping into some mock-ups just because some of this stuff is still under development. So let me step you through the workflow here. So I've got this IT risk SCF framework, the secure controls framework, set up in my organization, and I've got my risk category open here. And when I scroll down below, a new section that you'll see here is that I can actually associate different asset types directly to this risk category or control objective. So I'm going to click on this Manage Associations button, and it's going to pull open this side panel so I can actually see all of the asset types that are available for my organization. And I can go ahead and click on the relevant ones here and hit save. Now, once I do that, when I refresh my page, I can actually come in here and see that now the IT assets for hardware have been associated directly to this risk category. And I can see that there are actually over 10,000 different hardware assets that are available to this organization. So obviously for a downstream control assessment, performing an assessment on 10,000 plus assets is a little bit unrealistic. Unless you've got some really great controls in place and some great control automation in place. So the next step is that we actually have to scope down those assets to an individual assessment. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click into the downstream assessment that I have set up, this project here for critical infrastructure risk assessment. And in the scoping and BIA tab that I have here, I can actually scope down to the individual assets that are going to be a part of the risk and control assessment as part of this project. So I'm going to click on this button here called Scope Assets. And what it'll do is it'll actually open up this wizard where it'll help me narrow down the parameters. So I know exactly which assets I'll actually be conducting an assessment for. So in this first step here, I'm going to select my asset types. I apologize because I know this is different from the previous example we were using around software assets, but please just pretend that it says software assets. And from here, I've chosen my asset type, and now I can actually narrow it down to those specific individual assets. To help with that, I can actually filter down by the level of criticality that we are concerned with. So those criticality scores that we populated using those workflow robots and questionnaires that we saw on the asset details page come in handy here, where I can say, well, I'm only interested in the high and critical criticality assets, for example. From there, it scopes down and further filters down my view of assets. And from here, I can select the individual assets that I am interested in. Now, once I hit continue, I can actually take it a step further and look at the risk categories that are available from my framework objectives based on that relationship that we've already established at the asset type to framework objective level, or framework risk category level, pardon me. And from here, I can actually select the relevant risk categories that I want to actually import into my project if those risk and controls don't already exist in my project. And I can go ahead and hit continue and save and scope my assets. Now, once I've done that, I can actually step directly into my control assessment process or my risk assessment process, as I usually do within the HighBond platform. So for the purposes of our example, let's go back to that IT asset around Safari. So in my cybersecurity and privacy assessment project, I've got some SCF controls here, my secure controls framework controls around VPM 05, which is around software patching. And this control is around ensuring that mechanisms exist to conduct software patching for all deployed operating systems, applications, and firmware. So very relevant to the software IT asset that we had around Safari. Now, I could go and conduct some manual, maybe sample testing and update that all into here. But of course, we have some exciting capabilities that we're building into our robotics offerings. And I just want to showcase some of that for you as well. So we're going to take some of the data that we have from external systems, bring that in through the power of robotics. We're actually going to automate some of this control testing and bring it through this beautiful workflow that we've already established for you here and pull in some storyboards so that you can actually see those insights in real time. So I'm actually going to show you this storyboard that we have around IT compliance controls monitoring that we built for this demo. Now, our very own security team at Galvanize actually utilizes a very, very similar storyboard to this. And what they do is they use this as a way to monitor all of their ongoing compliance and controls for, say, for example, that control that we were just talking about for VPM 05. So in here, in the storyboard, I've got some other controls in here as well. So for example, things around access management, our employees actually rotating their passwords every 3 months. But I've also got this section here where I've got some beautiful visualizations set up around our high risk applications and whether or not our employees are following the patch compliance regarding those particular IT assets. So what we've done is we've actually sourced some of this data from Jamf, which is an application that we actually install onto all of our employees' MacBooks. And what Jamf does is it allows us to see, what versions of the operating system our employees are using, as well as the applications. And so what we've done is we've actually automated pulling in that data into our system so that I can actually see here my list of high criticality or high risk applications. And I can see how many employees are actually on the latest versions of that application versus who actually needs to go in and maybe update those applications on their computers. So for example, coming down here into our browser section, I can see that for my Safari users, it looks like most of the Safari users are on the latest version, which is fantastic. And we just have a few stragglers that need to update their Safari versions. Now on my Firefox, I can see that there are some employees that are updating to the latest version, but it looks like the majority are actually not. And now if there were a institution, I don't know, like Microsoft or whoever comes in and says that, hey, there is some kind of vulnerability or some kind of security issue with a specific version, what I can do is leverage our existing robotics functionality to go in and actually drill down into the details and actually automate the remediation of all of these issues that I'm finding. So for example, if I see that, 46 users are on version 76, which has some kind of issue with it, I can drill down into the details. Give it a second there. And I can actually identify which exact employees are still using that version 76 of Firefox. I can see all of the employees here. And what I can do is I can actually start to remediate this and actually push it through a workflow to actually send out an email to their managers or directly to the employees to prompt them to actually update. Now, the beautiful part about this storyboard is that it actually will allow our security team to verify and validate the results of that remediation exercise in real time. So I can actually see as our employees go in and update their Firefox versions, this chart will actually change in real time as well. And one unique sort of benefit that our platform is providing is that we're actually able to combine the view of all of these different individually siloed security operations tools and connect that back into our core asset inventory so that we can actually provide a very clear view of your risk across your organization, across all of these various different applications that you may be utilizing. Now, you're probably wondering how I actually got all this information into this storyboard and how that relates back to our risk and control assessments that we were talking about earlier. So what we actually did was we actually went ahead and created a robot. And just to note here, we've got a few different types of robots that are now available to our customers. We've got our traditional ACL robots, which uses our analytics engine on premise. we've got our new HighBond robots, which actually use a combination of Python as well as HCL. So it's utilizing the latest technology that all of the data scientists are using today. And what I can do is I can actually create a HCL robot or a Python robot that will go and do all the data extraction and data analysis that I need in order to perform that assessment. The other type of robot is the workflow robot, which we talked about briefly when we were going through the criticality assessment, which is a event-based robot that gets triggered by specific events that happen within the HighBond platform. They basically spin up, perform some tasks, and wind down once they're done. So for this HighBond robot, I'm going to dive into this Jamf computer app monitoring robot. I'm just going to quickly show you the actual Python script that we used here. So I'm going to go into dev mode just to show you this script. And let's go in and edit that script. So again, this is utilizing the latest technologies. This is using Python, and it also leverages the Pandas library, which is basically a library of Python data analysis scripts that people can tap into. So you can see here that what we've done is we've actually gone in and actually connected to a dev environment for Jamf that we had available from our IT team. We actually hooked into that. Note that we don't actually have any native connectors for Jamf, but because Jamf has REST APIs available publicly, we can actually just hook into that, just like we can hook into almost any data source out there. And we just need to populate a few tokens here. And from here, we have a Python script that is basically importing and connecting to that Jamf database. It is retrieving the details of our employees' computer. So all the MacBooks that have been distributed out to employees, we can get all the information from those MacBooks. We can even grab the list of applications. So for example, which versions of Safari are they on? What operating system version are they on? We can grab all those details. We can perform an analysis and actually manipulate the data so that it actually is in a format that we want to use in order to produce our reports. And then we can export it directly to results. Now, the really cool thing that we're building towards, because all of this is really awesome, but not everyone, especially not a lot of GRC practitioners, are going to know how to code in Python or directly in HCL right away. So one cool thing that we're working towards, and note that this comes after the May release, but definitely something that we're striving towards soon after, is we're building this flow builder, this visual and easy drag and drop visual workflow builder, that we can actually go in here and actually have these nodes that you can drag and drop to perform that analysis for you. So even the most non-technical of users can actually leverage all of the awesome robotics capabilities that we are building into the platform. So for example, we'll have different types of nodes, and you'll actually be able to drag and drop and connect your nodes to perform the different types of analysis that you saw in that Python script.
That is awesome.
Now, that is a lot of information, and all of this is really cool, but how do we tie it back to the control assessment that we're performing? Well, of course, coming back to that control around VPM 05 and our software patching for applications and operating systems and firmware, one thing we can do is we can obviously hook it directly into the data that is available within results. So for example, I can monitor all of the records for application patch monitoring and hook it directly into here. One additional thing I can do is I can leverage all of our existing capabilities, and I can maybe add a metric in here to actually automate the control assessment. So for example, let's just use the metric for example. Once I do that, I can actually automate whether or not this control is effective based on a metric that I have configured in results. So I can actually say, anytime this is less than 50%, that means it is, or 90%, that means it is effective, or something along those lines. And I can basically automate the rating of that control assessment as well. And yeah, with that, the next steps for us is that on top of all of this cool existing robotics functionality that we have, where we can suck in data from almost virtually anywhere, perform analysis, and make this a more automated process, the next step that we're also working on as well is to take that information and to put it back into the asset details page as well. So your asset details really becomes the sort of central view that you need to actually monitor all of the risks and all the controls in order to ensure that you are compliant with all of those IT security requirements that are out there as well.
Great.
So I will stop sharing here and I'll pass it over back to you, Vignesh.
Absolutely. I'd like to reiterate a few pieces. Let me open out the model. Before I go into third-party bond, I want to reiterate what we showed you in ITRM bond, and I want to emphasize on what will be available out of the box on May 1st. So firstly, we believe that we should not just give you a fridge, we should give you the fridge with the food stacked ready to go so that you can immediately start using it. And how are we doing that? When you get ITRM bond on HighBond, what you will get is you will get that initial categorization workflow that we discussed about. You'll get a way to upload all your assets using HighBond importer in bulk. You'll have a criticality assessment questionnaire, which we've built that will help you define the categorization or the criticality of your assets. You'll have the ability to use projects to assess the risk and controls of the assets that you've scoped to that project. And in order to help all of this, you will also have the secure controls framework available as a framework on the platform, so you can use that content to assess your assets. With that, you will of course have the ability to do reporting. You'll have the ability to create robots and do all of the wonderful things that Mai just showed you. Now, that was ITRM bond. Going forward, let's look at third-party risk management workflow. Right. For the third-party risk management, what we're doing is we're targeting a similar use case. The main focus is to view all your third parties together in a single view and assess them for risk using a standardized assessment. Now, we don't want to repeat everything that we showed you for ITRM, so let me go directly into the details for third-party risk management. We have 4 key steps which are part of the third-party risk management workflow. The first one is third-party registration. Here, you will be able to create your third parties or import them. You will also be able to integrate with risk rating providers, for external risk rating providers like BitSight, Risk Recon, and so on. The second step, very similar to IT risk management, is third-party categorization. Here, you will be able to prioritize your third parties in terms of criticality, and you'll be able to utilize the out-of-the-box automated criticality assessment, which is customized for third parties. The third step is third-party risk assessment, and here is where you will assess your third parties for risk. This is part of your trust cycle, and what you will be using here is you will utilize your SIG-Lite or your CAKE-Lite, which is as an assessment. Do note that we will be providing the SIG-Lite and the CAKE-Lite to you. It will be ready to use right off in your bond, and it'll also be automated with the workflow robots that Mai was referring to give you a risk score at the end of it. And after all of this is done, then you will come to third-party activation, where you can actually approve your third party and accept it as part of your environment, or you could archive it if the contract of the third party expires. If you choose not to proceed with them, you can archive them and store the information that you've had for the third party so far. I'll hand it over now to Mai to show us on the platform how it looks.
Yep. So again, this is very similar to what we just showed you with ITRM bond as well. So I'm just looking for my window. Where did it go? There we go. Right, so I am back in the asset inventory now, this time as a third-party risk manager. And as you can see here, we have the out-of-the-box asset type already populated for this organization around third parties. So when I click into this, I can see all of the third parties that have already been logged for my organization. And I can go in here and create a new one. I can, as Vignesh said, we can import them from different sources as well. So let's take one, for example, or would you prefer that I create a new one from scratch?
Your choice.
Yeah, okay. Let's call this Vignesh Industries,
Yes.
a hot new third party that we're evaluating. And so once I create this new third-party asset within my asset inventory, again, it's stored in a draft state, but you'll notice a difference from the ITRM workflow that we showed you earlier. Now there are more steps in here beyond pending categorization. So as Vignesh mentioned, there are some additional steps around the actual assessment and having a review step in place. And the actual attributes themselves that you actually see within this third-party asset type will actually be different as well. So there will be additional parameters. So for example, you'll get to also, define your risk managers, your business owners, what type of third party we're talking about. Is this a product or service? In this case, maybe I want to say that it's a service. I'll say that Vignesh is the business owner and I am the risk manager. In here, you can also use this dropdown to also identify groups as well. If there is a group that you've already defined within your Launchpad user settings to signify that, hey, this group, this entire department of people, for example, is the business owner for this third party. And of course, I can go in here and provide a description around this third party, fill out some other details, and I can hit save and push it through that workflow again. So once I am in here, again, I can go ahead and register it.
We've kept the workflows very similar in terms of ITRM and third-party bond. Because many customers would prefer to have similar workflows. They'll have similar teams following the same risk management processes for assessing the risk of a third party as well as assessing the risk of an asset.
Yeah. And similar to what we've shown you already before with the IT assets, you will be able to go through that categorization process. And we will also have some out-of-the-box ways. Vignesh, I don't know if you want to touch on maybe some of these risk scores and risk levels that are available as well.
Yes. So we will first do the categorization here because third parties usually are not assessed in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and availability like IT assets. You usually assign them a single criticality level. We have a customized questionnaire, but for now, we can directly select the third-party criticality level and save it and move forward.
Now that I've saved that, I can go ahead and approve this Vignesh Industries third-party asset and push it through the workflow to the next step.
Correct. Once you've finished categorizing the asset, that's when your actual third-party external risk rating scores kick in. You'll be able to integrate with your third-party risk rating right from your registered state. What will happen is the risk ratings from your bid side and security scorecard will be available, and there'll be an integration which will update that. For now, we'll focus on the SIGLite risk score. So after you're done categorizing, you can select your SIGLite risk level and your CakeLite risk level. You can provide your risk score. This will actually be calculated similarly like we showed using a questionnaire, which will be sent out to the third-party owner. They will update that information based on their responses. An automated workflow robot will work and provide this risk rating and risk level. We can save this.
All right, and now I can go ahead and review it.
You can, because many times the workflow for a third-party asset can have different branches. Sometimes we can choose to directly just categorize the asset. We already know the risk levels and risk scores, like in this case, so we can move it to a pending to review state. In case it's an asset which is a very critical asset to the critical third party to the entire organization, and you need to gather this information, we have a step before the pending review, which is risk assessment, where you can actually send this out and get it assessed to. And you can then come to the pending review state based on that response. Okay. So for this particular state of pending review, this is designed as a state where the third-party risk manager approves the final risk level of the third party. So what they will do is they will scroll right down to the very end. They will look at these risk scores from your third parties like BidSite, Security Scorecard, and so on. They will look at your SIGLite risk level. They look at your CAKELite risk level. They look at your criticality level. They will provide an overall risk rating for this third party. Then they will provide a rationale for that rating, defining it as not critical because it does not impact any of our identifiable services. You could give any sort of definition for that. You'll save it. And now, after providing the rationale and the risk rating, you'll be able to activate this particular third party. Activation implies that this third party is accepted to be part of the environment, and we'll be actively monitoring it for risk.
And like Vignesh mentioned before with the ITRM workflow as well, if at any point you're transitioning your IT or your assets through the workflow, if there are required steps that are in place, there will be the error checking to make sure that all the required fields are filled up before you can actually transition to the next status.
Yep. And that's your third-party risk management workflow. This is built to enable assessing your third parties at scale using standardized assessments. So very quickly, you'll be able to assess all your third parties.
Yep, thank you. And similar to what we've shown with the ITRM workflow, similar process on the third party side as well. We can still leverage all of our robotics capabilities to take in all of that human and digital data to inform our assessments. We can basically plug in all of the new assets and asset types that we have available through the new asset inventory into the rest of the HighBond ecosystem to perform all of those downstream risk and control assessments. And of course, we can build some beautiful storyboards to tell our story as well. Note that we also did not touch on some of the other parts of our platform, like strategy and compliance maps, but obviously all of those will work in tandem as well.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elias?
Yep. Thank you, Shilpa, for sharing the video. We'll have a break now, and if there are any questions, you are free to ask. Elias will be happy to answer your queries. And after the question and answer session, we will take a break. Please. You can unmute yourself so that you can ask any questions you may have. You can also send your queries on chat. think since there are no further questions, we will take a break now. We are on time. 12:45 is our break. So we will rejoin at 2 p.m. We will walk through the ACL Robotics and show you the continuous control monitoring, followed by the interactive session with Tom on the IT risk management and third-party risk management. Thank you.
Thank you.